Okay, we're live. Hello again, everybody.
What's up, chat? Buckle in.
Buckle up because we got an awesome one for you guys. We're talking about our top 10 films of the last decade, the 2010s. So this should be fun. A lot of films to talk about, a lot of different films. And, I feel like that decade really, there was a lot of different elements that kind of came into play. You think about Marvel became a thing in the 2010s. Before that, it just wasn't a thing. Yeah. Now we can't imagine our lives without thinking about 2 or 3 Marvel or 4 Marvel films coming out a year.
Yeah,
totally and different.
Also, from the beginning of the decade to the end, we went from a little bit of that classic studio system of you're going to have your blockbuster, you're going to put out 5 other movies just because we can. We're going to put out Russell Crowe's next 3 days or something. Those are all going to hit theaters, and then you'll get your blockbusters, your G.I. Joes or whatever. We went from that to 4 or 5 Marvel movies a year, and all of the rest of the indie trash goes to streaming or whatever. It was a really transitional kind of decade in that sense, I think.
Yeah, the Netflixes, the Hulus. Now we have Apple, we have Amazon. These guys are all in the game making content. Yeah. And that's sort of had an effect on what films get made.
The whole premium TV thing really exploded. I mean, we had in the 2000s the Dexters and the Sopranos, but we really had Breaking Bad came into its own. House of Cards came out on Netflix. Everyone's like, what is Netflix? Ooh, woo. So a lot. I feel like a lot of that has taken away from some movies getting made or making the theaters. It was wild.
Yeah, there's a lot. If you think about what was it, True Detective season 1?
Yes.
I mean that could that have been a movie? It really feels like it on a lot of levels. I really feel like season 1 of Westworld feels like a movie, basically. I feel like that could have been a Christopher Nolan movie. If they just truncated it down to a 2-hour movie, it would have been...
I'm glad it wasn't, because it would have been even more disjointed. But yeah.
I think that it could have worked, but I'm glad that they got at least season 1. Season after that, I feel like it went off the rails hard. But again, so there's all this stuff competing in the marketplace, and it's a huge, there's a lot of stuff going on now in film. Okay. So, all right, so let's start our list. You want to start with your number 10, Lucian?
We're just gonna go right into it, huh?
Dude, let's do it. All right.
So I mean, I have to preface my list though. We were talking about this earlier. It's not necessarily a definitive list because it was hard for me. I told Ibrahim earlier I was kind of putting all the movies together that came out. I cut half of them, and then I still had 36 to go through. So to pare it down even further, some of these movies stand for entire sets of other movies. But really, again, same as my list for 2019 and some of the other lists. What's more important to me is kind of the place and time I was at when I saw it, the feeling that it gave me, or the wish fulfillment that it gave me, or whatever the case may be, versus actual critical or this is an important movie, that kind of thing, essential viewing, right? And your boy over here is a degenerate, and I like what I like, and I like mostly schlock and offensive things. So my number 10 is the masterpiece that is The Expendables 2.
Oh, The Expendables 2.
The Expendables 2, because Expendables 1 was a pretty huge. So my background, grew up in Eastern Europe. Literally, all we had to eat and drink is Rambo, Rocky, Commando, Cobra, etc. Right? Those are the movies. Die Hard, etc. Expendables 1 was a huge moment, but I feel like it was a little oversold. Stallone came out and he was like, we got all the boys and we're gonna woo. But really, it was just Stallone and Statham, the movie, and then some of the other guys kind of filled out. Expendables 2 is the one that just blew it out, and it blew me away. They made the smart decision where they didn't Stallone chose not to direct so that he could just focus on being Stallone. They got a very, very, very competent director that doesn't get enough credit, Simon West of Con Air fame. And this is the movie where it feels like an Avengers of the boomer generation of action dudes that I grew up with. Right, I could tell you what the whole cast is, but basically this is the one where they got Jean-Claude Van Damme. They made him a villain, right? You got Arnold and Bruce Willis trading one-liners. You got all kinds of martial arts, special effects. most importantly, out of everything, they got Chuck Norris to crawl out from whatever rock he was hiding under to be in this movie, to come up to the camera and say a Chuck Norris joke. Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris. I mean, you have to remember, like, at the time, like, at least, I don't know. I don't know if everybody else cared. This is the year 2012, right? But for me, this was the ultimate. When it comes to like action movies, this is the ultimate action or wish fulfillment. It was just to see all these guys after all these years, because there were rivalries in the 80s and the 90s. I remember Last Action Hero. There was a scene where Arnold goes to like a movie premiere and like Jean-Claude is there and Stallone is there and they're all talking shit on each other. Like, it was such a cathartic moment to have all of these guys on screen together. And it was a good movie. It was like a good action film. It's not just there's these guys in it and then there's some action. It was, the plot does whatever it has to do to keep you moving, but it really is well made. And I think it stands for kind of the end of that era. Because again, now it's just Marvel movies. The end of those particular types of stars. I feel like being able to box office carry a movie. Schwarzenegger had a couple movies come out after that did whatever, and then he went back under. Stallone, if he didn't have Creed, I feel like he wouldn't be relevant either. Rambo, God knows Rambo sucks now. So this is it, man. This is the one. This is entering in at number 10 purely because I still get worked up talking about it. It's such for my childhood and for that genre of action movies of like just shitty, but not like straight to Hulu shitty where, there's no budget and everyone, they're just sitting in a car for 40 minutes. Like, I'm going to stop talking about it. I like Expendables too.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, Expendables was a big deal. I remember when the first one, like this, stuff like that wouldn't really move me a lot. But when it's like Stallone and Statham and Jet Li and even like Terry Crews.
Oh,
and
Terry
it's
Crews
like
is so good in those movies.
Yeah, he is great.
Yeah,
Isn't there a scene in the second one where he's just like got like a rocket launcher or something like that, or like a grenade launcher, and he's just like blasting people? I remember that's in one of the movies.
Probably in the first one, they're like in a catacomb or whatever. He comes in with this like big ass shotgun. And he's just like shredding dudes.
Yeah, I think so. Dolph Lundgren, he's in the second one, right? For sure.
Yeah, he's in all of them.
And what I love, I'm pretty sure it's I forget which one it is, but like there's this one moment where, it's all these are so kind of self-referential, and like the more you know about them, the more you get out of it. Because like he's a really smart guy. He's like a physicist or something. Mm-hmm. And like they're stuck in a cave, and he's like doing physics on how we need an explosion this big because then it's gonna. And like if you didn't know anything about him, you're like, what? But if you understand, like this guy is like really smart, like really, really smart.
Yeah, he's
you get that reference.
I think.
Yeah. It's awesome.
A lot of great moments. There's the first one was shot while Arnold was still in office as governor, and there's that moment in the church, where they say fuck you to each other or whatever, and then he walks away, and then someone asks Stallone like, "What's his problem?" He's like, "He wants to be president." Like, it's so great. It's so great. It's just, and
it's just fun, right? It's like, why do we have all these people in this movie? It's just for pure crowd pleasing, really.
Pretty much.
Fan service,
Yeah. And it's important that everybody gets enough screen time to feel justified. Again, that was kind of my problem with the first movie. I think this one is the one that really nailed it. Yeah. Good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. So my number 10 is Mad Max Fury Road.
Yes.
Okay. So I remember like seeing this and not really expecting much out of it. I definitely I feel like I liked it more the more I watched it and the more I hear people talk about it. And the more you understand like what they really achieved. Like when you see how much they did practically, when you see like how much they did with like the color correction in the movie.
Oh man,
it's unbelievable. Like
unreal.
When you see the color grade of like just the film and then what the final product was, it's unbelievable. And like the fact that this movie is basically like they when he pitched it to Warner, it was just like a bunch of storyboards, pretty much. It's like, this is what I want to do. This is the movie. Are you cool with it? They were like, okay. And I mean, they probably didn't expect a lot out of it, and it became huge. You know,
it's unreal, man. Like, because the storyboards have been in his head for like 30 years, right? Since the last Mad Max, and then
since whatever Beyond Thunderdome or whatever. Yeah.
It's insane, man. That they. First of all, that they would take the chance on him. He hadn't. I mean, Happy Feet. Okay, like the Happy Feet guy is going to do this.
Yeah, so he almost did a Justice League movie with them.
Oh, there's that DC fan in you coming out. I didn't know this.
Well, it got really, really close. Like he cast it. The Australian government was going to give him a bunch of money, and then something happened and it fell through. It just got really close, and then it fell through.
Got it.
But so he has kind of still been a Warner guy, but you know he hadn't really done something in a while, and then he did Mad Max Fury Road, and it was like, I mean, it's probably one of the best films he's ever done. Really, maybe the best film he's ever done.
Probably the best. I mean, you said as an achievement outside of it being a good movie is insane.
Yeah. I mean, if you just think like they basically just went into the desert in Australia, and like the crew is all Australian. The DP and everything, and they just like, you know, just did their thing. And it's pretty amazing. I mean, it just like all these scenes, like when Immortum Joe is like chasing after them, and they're going into that massive sandstorm. Like it's unbelievable, and like the guy playing the guitar. I forget what they called the group of people going after him, but like it's just like, how did someone think up something like this?
I mean, and how did someone have all of that in his head? Because like, imagine you're in the desert and you have all these hundreds of people working, and you have these two lead actors who, by all accounts, hate each other. Tom Hardy hated the director. He was just like, I don't get why you want me to do this. This is fucking stupid. And he's just like, trust me. Like, I know what that feeling is like, of just like, what the fuck are we doing? And the director's just the only one who's just like, listen, this is gonna work. And everyone's looking around you. They're in the desert like, this guy's insane. Like, it's a miracle.
It is, yeah. And that just shows you, like, you know, you don't always have to get along for it to work out, but someone has to have a clear vision.
Someone has to have the vision, yeah.
Yeah, and people have to believe in that vision. And so probably, you know, him, the producer, the DP, they believed in it, and everyone else was kind of like, you know.
Right. It's
but like, he really, I mean, just like the visuals of it, and there's just so many iconic visual moments. The sandstorm. When the dude's driving into the freaking sandstorm, he's like, "Oh yeah, what a lovely day!" And it's just like, "What
a lovely day!"
Yeah. Like when Max is like hanging on the thing, and he's like bouncing back and forth.
That's what I was thinking of earlier. Yeah.
When the guys jump off and they like have the barbs and they're like throwing barbs at him.
Yeah.
It's just like, whoa, this is post-apocalyptic. It's just so steampunky and like crazy.
It's a great moment too, because Mad Max, like, how many people have done Mad Max since Mad Max? Like, people have tried to do that aesthetic, right? And then finally here they come and they do Mad Max again, and they're kind of showing everybody like, this is how you adapt it. This is how like it would look now, you know, done today. It's really awesome. Like, I'm thinking of like Book of Eli, for example, that piece of shit. Like, there's a lot of movies that we're trying to do, not necessarily as out there as Mad Max, but they were doing that post-apocalyptic thing, and then here comes Mad Max.
Sure, The Road was another one.
Yeah, it was good stuff.
Yeah, and one of the most critically acclaimed films, actually, of the decade as well.
So cathartic to watch them just rake in all the Oscars. I remember there were a couple other movies that were like kind of the favorites at the Oscar that year, that they were going to win all those awards, and then Mad Max just swept up, award after award.
By the way, the score of this movie is like unbelievable.
Yeah.
Junkie XL, unbelievable score. Like, you hear that, you get a feeling immediately, and what a good choice. You think of those scenes, and it's unbelievable, the score of this film. So there's so much to like about this movie.
So much.
Cool. All right, so what's your number 9?
Man, well, you got me thinking about Mad Max now. Well, my number 9 kicked out a lot of other movies. Like, this is the last one that I put on here. Like, it kicked out Fast 5 and a couple of these movies because I felt like I kind of covered that with Expendables. Number 9 is Hacksaw Ridge.
Okay, yeah.
Mel Gibson's Hacksaw Ridge. And I'm not just putting it on there because I'm a Mel Gibson fan, because I am. But this movie made me cry like a little bitch. And you could say that it is purposely done that way. You know, it's a little emotionally. I mean, the story is so emotional, right? It's so charged that, of course, you know. But I think it's delivered in such a way, like it's directed in such a way, and the performances are so strong. I mean, you go into it expecting it to be like a Saving Private Ryan kind of a thing, or at the very least, you know, it's Mel Gibson, so you know that there's going to be some like brutal, you know, massive combat sequences in it or whatever. And it does have all of that, but like he really like nails the human story. Hugo Weaving as like the alcoholic dad in this that like beats on his, you know, he like beats on the main character's mom, and there's like all this trauma, like family trauma, but they all like hang in there because he's a World War I vet and he's got all this PTSD, and like nobody comes out of this movie clean except the main character. And I just think it was really well done. It's a more recent movie out of most of the ones on my list, but it made the list just because I honestly didn't think that we were going to see Mel Gibson come back and like do something that was like this poignant, or like rather this effective, you know, like I don't think he hadn't directed anything in like 10 or 11 years. Right. So,
well, like since Apocalypto?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And this wasn't that high budget. It was all shot in Australia, I'm pretty sure, or at least the battle sequence was shot in Australia. And it was kind of funny. I was watching the behind the scenes, and they basically just gave him this like plot of land, and they set up like all the dunes and the trenches and stuff, and they were just like, have at it, you know. And they were there for like a week or 10 days or something, and the stuff that came out of that battle sequence, man, is really impressive. Really, like when the Japanese charge and everyone is just exploding and shit. Vince Vaughn is in this movie. He's fucking
Vince
awesome.
Vaughn, yes.
There's a lot of great things I can say about this movie, but it made it to number 9 just because it's an action movie, right? It's a patriotic, rah, whatever. But emotionally, it affected me a lot. Something about it could have something to do with the main character being like having like a really solid Christian base, you know, like I was brought up that way. So like I understand, and especially in like a time like the 40s where it's taking place, like I understand why that, you know, like we talked a little bit about this with the devil all the time, but like, you know, your family is everything and your faith is everything. And this guy goes into like the most hellish of like the hellscapes ever known.
Yeah, he does.
He sticks through it. He sticks to his values and he comes out the other side. It's a true story. Real emotional. Again, you could say it's emotionally manipulative, patriotic garbage, whatever. But it's a really well made film, and it affected me. And so that's why I made it to number 9.
Yeah, it's a great film. He really knows how to depict violence on film. I mean, if you think Braveheart, Apocalypto, even The Passion of the Christ, and apparently they're going to do a Passion 2 or Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah, we'll see. But no, I think thank you brought that up. That's because he does it in a way that it's not glorifying violence. At least I don't think it is. I mean, it might be a little bit, but it doesn't feel like cheap, you know, like the violence is there for the sake of the violence being there. Like it always feels like it's part of this grander kind of like spiritual arc. The violence is there, and it's really grody.
Yeah, it is a bit transcendent because, you know, I think of that's definitely one of the more debated things about film is like, how do you depict violence? I remember there was this documentary about the rating system in America, like, you know, PG-13R, PG, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And I think it was Darren Aronofsky was talking about like how he felt like the kind of comparing like the 90s James Bond movies that are hella cartoony, and he's just like boom, 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 kill, killing people really easily and quickly. And he felt like that was worse than something like Saving Private Ryan, where it's super brutal, but that's closer to reality. Like reality is Saving Private Ryan. It's brutal, it's bloody, it's nasty, it is horrific. And it's probably better to put that in the minds of people and make them understand it, at least from his perspective. And I feel like Mel Gibson, that's what he does with violence. It's like human beings, you know, are violent, and we do these things to each other where we perpetuate these things on each other. And, you know, you could do the James Bond stuff like judo chop, oh, you're dead. Right. But like, you know, that's a cartoon. That's not reality. When you kill someone, and James Bond is basically an assassin and you know, like it needs to be brutal. It needs to look horrific. You need to kind of go like, oh, I feel a little bit differently about this guy now that he does these things.
That's one of my biggest problems with James Bond is that it's always just like they don't even use squibs, right? They just poof poof, ow, I'm dead. Like that's always been annoying to me as a fan of I guess you could say bloody movie violence, but I don't know, like something about the Mel Gibson movies remind you that human beings are bags of meat. That's the way that the violence is always approached, and maybe it's cathartic sometimes, and then you feel kind of icky about it. It's like, man, it's awesome that 50 cal is shredding these dudes, but like they're shredding these dudes. This is fucking nasty,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting, but that's why I put it on my list. And they made the top 10. I had to cut a lot of movies to put this in here.
Yeah, but I think that's a good choice because that's a film I feel like is going to resonate for a long time.
I hope so. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Hacksaw Ridge, great choice. So my number 9, I feel like this is one of, if you're gonna think about the decade, I feel like this film has to be on the top of the list. And so for me, my number 9 is Inception.
Yes.
Inception is just like a film that I remember when it came out, it was huge. People talked a lot about it, a lot.
Yeah.
And I was actually in film school at the time. And I'll tell you how big this film was. So like we had basically at UC Santa Barbara, we have a second run theater that's run by students and like one faculty. And so they choose films to come out.
Right.
Well, there's some other politics involved, but anyway, so they were able to get Inception.
Wow.
And when Inception came out, this was probably like 2 or 3 weeks into its run, the line was like absurd. And the movie's free for students.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, for like a 100-seat theater, maybe, it was probably like 500-600 people showed up to try and see the movie.
Wow. Yeah.
And then I had a class where we showed it. And the number of people who showed up to see Inception in class was like 5-10 times the number of people who had come to see the other movies that we went to see.
That's awesome.
So, and this is like probably 8-9 months after it's already been in theaters. Like it just resonated so much in the consciousness. Everything about it just worked. The score, which has now become sort of like the way that they did the trailer. Yeah, it defines the era. Like
every movie for pretty much that entire decade has that blah moment or that bass drop moment. I think the blah evolved into the bass drop, but like it has that moment in the trailer.
Every trailer has that moment, and every trailer is kind of, I feel like it's built like the Inception trailer.
Yes. Oh my god.
Basically, because there's this formula. It's like ask a question. The protagonist
guy says something, mysterious, fade to black.
Fade to black. But title card.
From director. But
like, look, this again has one of the most iconic shots in all of cinema when they're in that hallway and things start turning.
Yep.
I mean, that blew people away.
Yeah. Bringing Kubrick to the modern audience.
Yeah. It's just like 2001.
Mm-hmm.
But that was like one of the coolest scenes in any movie. Like, and all of it is, I don't know if you've seen Tenet yet.
No, not yet.
Okay, so comparing Tenet and Inception is very interesting because I feel like Inception is the type of, like, they're similar films. They're trying to do similar things, I would say. Inception does a really, really good job of explaining the rules to the audience, but then breaking the rules. But then breaking them and then sort of like, I think he spent a lot of time also like creating an emotional connection so that you're not just like, okay, this is interesting, but why should I care?
Yeah.
Because, Cobb, the main character, has a dilemma and his choices are leading to sort of escalating problems. And that leads them down further into his own sort of moral ambiguous landscape and of his past. And I think that stuff mattered for us to actually care about all we're on these 5 levels down of dreams. Because like that's what Christopher Nolan cares about is like, okay, so if dreams are a thing, what happens if there's a dream within a dream and then another one? How does time work?
What's remarkable
that's what he
about
loves.
Yeah, you were talking about like how big it was at the time in the zeitgeist. Like it is remarkable because I mean, obviously, I saw the movie in theaters. I was there,
Yeah.
whatever that means. But like, it's remarkable that you can have a plot or a concept for a movie that's like we're 5 levels into the dream and they're going to implant the idea. And people that I knew that like you are not normally. What I'm trying to say is that it brought something to the mainstream that like I didn't think was possible, or you wouldn't think is possible, to have people thinking, you know, so abstractly or so like laterally about things in a movie plot. Like it was usually, you know, at the time it was again mostly G.I. Joes that came out in the summers, those types of movies. So to have this movie, I think it helped that it came off of The Dark Knight, because that movie put a lot of people into like a more kind of classic film approach mood. Like that movie was aping a lot of you know, older 80s movies and stuff like that, or like even 40s movies. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but yeah, it was just impressive to me that like I could talk to people that would normally only talk to me about, you know, Spider-Man or whatever, that are like, yeah, dude, dream within a dream, whoa, and like they were into it, they got it. Like that's really impressive, I think.
Yeah, and there's the fact that he was able to sell those ideas to people and have them consume it and have it work. That's not easy. That is not easy, I'll tell you right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's impressive that he was able to, and it's not perfect, but it's really good, and it's a super popular film. And really, realistically, this is a heist film.
It is.
It's a heist film.
Love
like
heist.
straight, there's like a bank robbery kind of film.
Yeah.
That's exactly what this film is, mixed with a little bit of, you know, some spy espionage, kind of
that scene where he walks into that fucking like chateau or whatever, where what's his name, Ken Watanabe is in there. There's like, I don't know, ninjas or whatever, like such a cool scene. That just came to mind.
Yeah, it's just so cool. It's like, you know, it's just really cool film, and you know, he really pulled it off. And it's like, it feels like it really feels like if he did like James Bond mixed with some like really weird sci-fi fantasy stuff.
Yeah, and James Bond wasn't a pussy kind of a movie where you could kill people and throw them off mountains and shit. Yeah.
Yeah, this movie,
I love James Bond.
Yeah, it's awesome. Inception, I feel like you have to talk about Inception if you talk about the 2010s.
Yeah.
Because I would say it is probably, if you talk about in terms of the perception of the audience, of people that actually consume film as media, it has to be number one, I would say, probably.
Yeah, I think so. I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to say, like, so far, like, our approaches are very different. Like, it seems like, I mean, they're all great movies, but your approach is like the definitive, you know, like this movie's definitive, this movie's definitive. Maybe not the whole list, but like so far it's been that way. And my movies are definitely not that. They're just good movies that happen to come out in the decade. But this movie, I felt like when I was making my list, like, this is absolutely, I mean, the Nolan... I think Dark Knight, again, was the catalyst, but like the Nolan craze of the 2010s, I think, started with this movie, and everybody like worshiping the ground he walked on. And then they went back through his filmography and they saw, you know, the Prestige and
Memento.
And they were like, oh my God, this man's a genius. Like, I think that may have softened a little bit. I've softened on it because I used to think he was literally the best filmmaker ever, just of all time, right? Because you get caught up in the hype at the time. At least I did. I was just like, Inception is it, man.
Well, when you go from Dark Knight to Inception, plus he's also done Memento and the Prestige.
Yeah.
That's a very strong filmography.
Yeah.
If you just look at those films, that's very strong.
Yeah, and as far as like who's the guy that's coming out with like new and interesting takes on like old genres or like old conventions, you know, as opposed to all the other filmmakers, like it was a moment. And I've softened on a lot of his stuff, and you're right, like they're not perfect. None of his movies are perfect, I don't think. But Inception is one of the ones I think that is like the definitive kind of Nolan experience.
It is the definitive. I feel like Inception and Memento are like, if you want to understand what he's about, those two films really tell you a lot about him.
Yeah,
I would say.
Yeah.
And the thing about it too, about Inception, this is a completely new thing. It's not like based on a book. It's not based on a comic. I mean, it is. He is kind of taking from like anime and stuff, Like
So
it's
did
a
The
bit
Matrix.
yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those moments.
But like Americans, you know, aside from some people that are off in some, you know, small communities, Americans are not into anime. Okay,
No.
if you did like a live action version of Evangelion, like 90% of people wouldn't know what that is. They just wouldn't know what it is, even though like for a lot of people like in Japan or whatever, that's like Evangelion is like in their veins, you know?
Yeah.
So
it's some of this stuff is in our veins too, in, you know, by way of Inception or by way of The Matrix or some of these other big original movies that come out. They just, you know, they just don't know. You have to sneak it into their food, you know, for the American audience.
Yeah, it's like putting the vitamins in your food, so you just eat it.
Yeah. Yeah, you can have your bacon and your fucking steak, but like, there you go. Take some Evangelion.
This is like $180, $200 million movie that's based on nothing. And they have to sell all these new ideas to Americans that are very complicated. Like the dream stuff is very complicated. And the fact that that's something that he does that no one else really, I don't think, does, other than maybe like James Cameron. Like someone who can be given $200, $300 million.
Absolutely.
That's like, you're not going to, if that's not DC, Marvel, some other IP, some other massive IP or freaking Cats or whatever, you know. They gave the dude like $150 million to make a Cats movie, and it's a disaster. Yeah. Like that, no one else other than him, a handful of people get to do what he did. Yeah. And what he still does. And that, I think that's a pretty amazing thing. And that's something, again, another reason why I think this should make the list is like
100%. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So what's your number 8, Lucian?
Yeah, if you sensed a little bit of regret in that last line, is because I was struggling. I was having the hardest time of like putting the movies that are really truly like deserve to be in the top of anyone's top 10 of the 2010s. Right, Inception's one of those movies. I just chose to go with my gut and my experiences. So my number 8, right, is The Disaster Artist.
Cool.
A more recent one. Put it above even the action movies and the wish fulfillment, because I think it's a really well done. First of all, it's a well made movie. I think it's a well directed movie. It's, for those who don't know, it's a movie. It's one of those. It's a movie about a movie, right? It's about the making of a movie. It's about the making of The Room. I'm sure every single person who's watching this knows what The Room is. Partly helped by this movie, because when this movie came out, it brought Tommy Wiseau and Greg Sestero, like it brought them out of hiding basically, and they did a lot of press for this. I mean, really, they did a lot of press for this. Tommy Wiseau was at the Golden Globes when that movie was there. When James Franco won his award, he brought him up on the stage with him. So like it really rose.
Damn,
like,
that's really nice.
Oh yeah, it was, yeah. He was there. I believe he was sitting in like the way back, and he like asked him to come up and stuff. So it was a really cool moment. But like again, the movie itself, phenomenal. Like it's a James Franco directed movie, and if you know anything about his filmography or like the stuff that he makes, that could go either way. Like he's usually making like really, really bizarre, like vain or like vanity projects, you know, or like he's got a lot of celebrity friends, so he'll get his celebrity friends to be in his movie for nothing, and he'll do some like shitty movies, or he'll like try to adapt something that he has absolutely no business adapting. He's directed like, I don't know, 30, 40 movies at this point. But The Disaster Artist, I feel like really hit, because it was the correct book, like the correct insanity for the correct like insane guy to make it. I feel like he got his brother to play Greg Sestero. They have tremendous chemistry in this movie. Once again, Alison Brie gets pulled in just by virtue of being there,
being married to
there's there's a lot of that James Franco kind of muscle in this. Like Bryan Cranston has a fucking awesome cameo. There's just a lot of funny stuff about this, but I think none of that gets lost. Like the message of the movie and the heart of the movie doesn't get lost in all of the shenanigans, and it doesn't play out like a Seth Rogen comedy or like a James Franco comedy as you would expect it. I feel like out of all of these movies, it has a heart and it has a message. It's able to transcend a little bit beyond what you expect from these people. And of course, you know, it was nominated for a lot of Golden Globes. Maybe an Oscar. I don't remember, for makeup or something.
I think, unfortunately for him, he got he got hit with some Me Too stuff.
Correct.
Like right after that Golden Globe stuff, like he got destroyed, and that nuked any chance. Like if he didn't have that negative press, I think he would have gotten some more nominations.
Oh, without a doubt, he would be making movies, bigger movies right now. Of course, like he would be probably working with Netflix or something. But I love this movie. Again, I love the humor of it. It's a great story, especially as aspiring filmmakers, right? Or anybody who's ever had a dream. Like you could take away all of the details out of it, and it's really just about a dreamer who dreams his dream, and he fucking makes it a reality,
and he does
right?
it. Mm-hmm.
And that's a really relatable thing. And I do think this is belongs in like a 2010s list. Because it's just, I don't know, it's just such a great story told in an interesting way by some very, very bizarre people.
Yeah, very bizarre. You know what's funny? So my girlfriend got me to watch The Room about 5 days ago for the first time. I'd never seen it.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, well, I didn't see it because it was I didn't see it because like I'm not gonna go on my own and watch that movie. Because I feel like that's the type of movie. It's like, okay, so there's some films that I think are best with an audience, like to really get, I think, what you need out of the film. Yeah. Or there's a certain type of experience. So the one that comes to my mind is Rocky Horror Picture Show. Like there is a type of way you should probably experience that film now. Yeah. And that, I mean, it's like
it's a religion.
So, yeah. Well, I mean, the way with Rocky Horror, like you go to a showing and then people will come on stage dressed in drag and they'll like say the parts and stuff. Yeah. That's how you're actually supposed to experience Rocky Horror. But I feel like with this, you see it with your friends and you just laugh. You just like have a good time, blown away by it. And the movie is like, the movie's like, it's so terrible, but like there are moments where you're like, well, what? And you're laughing, and then there's like this really crazy ADR. Like throughout the movie, ADR is like it's like watching a Japanese movie, man. Like where he's saying stuff, he's like, "Oh, hi Lisa, how are you?" He's like, "It's not
hi doggy."
Yeah, right. Or like what was the scene where he goes to pick up the flowers? You remember that?
Yeah. You're my favorite customer.
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, I didn't know this was you." He like pulls up his sunglasses.
Yeah,
you're my favorite customer.
I think like. I don't want to undersell how atrocious the source material is, right? But I think that's what I like about this movie is that it nails from like a realistic standpoint, like when that scene where he goes into the to rent the equipment and the guys are like, all right, so you shooting this on film or digital? And he's like, both. And they're like, you cannot do both. Or like at first he's like, we rent you the equipment. He's like, I won't buy the equipment. Like no one buys the equipment in Hollywood. Like, and that's a reality, right? And he's like, no, I buy the equipment. He's like, you can't buy the equipment. But anyways, what are you shooting it on? He's like, I'm doing everything. You know, like it's such an amazing story.
God.
It's such an amazing story. The way
and like he has these deep pockets. He has all this money, and no one knows where the money came from. No one knows, but like he has all this money, so he can just do whatever he wants.
And they don't have the answer to that question. Like Tommy Wiseau is never really like he's never told anyone. So the movie also they do like there's this great scene where Seth Rogen he plays the the continuity supervisor or something for the film. He goes to cash his check and he's just like surely like whatever
it's
like
not gonna work.
Yeah, and he's like has a back and forth with the teller. He's like, yeah, this account it's bottomless, and he's like, oh shit.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's so interesting about his story is like, it's like the guy just came out of nowhere, just appeared from thin air.
In his 40s.
In his 40s. He's like, I want to star in this movie. I want to make this movie. I have the money. I'm going to do it. And the world's just trying to tell him no, but he's not going to take no for an answer. He's going to do it.
Yeah, and honestly, that's all of us. You know, Hollywood can tell me to fuck off, but I showed up and I want to make my movie.
Yeah, like I don't give a damn what you have to say. I'm going to do it. I'm here. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Period.
So for all of those reasons, and again, the personal connection to the story, and also because I saw The Room with a bunch of friends, and to see it deconstructed by I would say an equally insane but successful person, it was a treat.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like. It's good that you put that one on your list because that is like I feel like The Room now it's reached a level where it's one of those films where people like watch it because they get something out of it. It's actually funny and fun to watch. Mm-hmm. And we think about so many films that are made that are just like whatever, like just disappear, right?
Yeah.
That have bigger stars, that have bigger names, that have bigger budgets.
We were talking about Stealth last week.
Yeah, Stealth. I mean, in another. I mean, now today, no one knows that the movie exists. Basically,
no one knows that movie.
They had like $150 million budget. It had huge stars.
It would be lucky if it made it to trending on Netflix.
Yeah,
it would be.
Right?
It would be a miracle. Yeah.
Yeah, but like you put The Room on Netflix.
Number one,
dude. Number
one that weekend. I promise you. People are gonna be like, "What the fuck is this movie?"
Especially like if they did something where they had like Tommy and what's his name, like the James Franco, like do a thing afterward. So it plays after, and they talk about the film and talk about making it. Like it would be huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
And Netflix does a really good job when they put one thing up. They'll get like the ancillary stuff, like when The Irishman went up, like all the Scorsese movie or like a lot of Scorsese movies got put up, things like that. So it could totally work. But yeah, it's just a weird story, and I think it was the right time to tell it. Like there was enough time for The Room to kind of like peak and then go under and then peak again, and so yeah.
Yeah, crazy story.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
If you haven't seen it, obviously you should check it out.
Yeah, check it out. See The Room with friends for sure, and yeah, you could probably just watch a Disaster Artist.
Yeah.
On its own.
Mm-hmm. You could. Yeah, they do a shot for shot remake of a lot of the stuff in the movie, and then at the end of the movie they show direct comparisons from it, so you really get the sense of like what the insanity that was going on.
Yeah, it's some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So my number 8 is the movie Moonlight.
Yeah. So see the definitive 2010s list. Let's go.
So Moonlight is a absolutely beautiful film. Mm-hmm. I feel like I watched it sort of randomly. I mean, I'd heard a lot about it, and
Same, actually.
Yeah, and I think I saw it before the Oscar, because this was part of the Oscar fiasco.
Yeah.
And absolutely, like you want to talk about definitive, that the Oscar thing is among the craziest things that has ever happened on live television, probably.
I'm glad I got to see it live.
It's up there with like the nipple slip from the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And so like that was one of the absolute nightmares that you could think of. Because look, if it was like best sound design, oops, we got the wrong one. I don't think anyone cares. But when you get the best picture wrong, that is a disaster. And then there's all the forensic of why and this and that. And like, the design on the thing was bad.
Yeah, there was like an investigation.
Yeah, and then some people blame Leo. They said, Leo, well, he gave him the wrong thing. And then blah, blah, blah.
Well, then they blamed, what's his name? Fucking,
Warren Beatty.
Yeah, like, these old boomers can't even read. Like, that's Warren Beatty. You shut your whore mouth.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah, and he was like, I don't know, Faye gave me the envelope. It was Faye's fault. Like,
it's like he blames her.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, this is so it gets caught up in that stuff. Right? So that is the unforgettable part. But this movie is good. This movie is really good. It's very emotional.
Awesome. Yeah.
This is like one of the first times we get to see Jharrel Jerome. Jharrel Jerome is he's going to do amazing things.
I hope so.
And he's continued to do great things. I don't know if you've seen When They See Us, but his performance in that is unbelievable. He won an Emmy for it. But this guy can act, and you can tell he just has it. And I don't know how old he was in this film. He's probably like a teenager, but he is incredible. I mean, the acting's incredible.
Yeah.
The level of emotionality that you get out of this film it's so, I think we had talked about this before. You said there was like some scenes where you felt like you were almost looking in on something that was really happening.
Like there were a couple moments in this film where I felt like I shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And that's like a weird feeling to get when you're watching a movie. Cause we've watched a lot of movies.
Yeah.
But just being in that house with the crack addicted mom. And I was just like, is this okay? Like, I don't want to be here right now. Yeah.
Yeah, that stuff is raw. Like those scenes are just really raw, and you're like, ooh, this is, ooh, because like there are sometimes, I felt like this like when you watch like The Bicycle Thieves, something like that, like the Italian neorealism where they get like the real people to be actors, and they're just replaying their lives.
Yeah,
where but it reaches this level of authenticity that's like above normal film performances, where it almost breaks what film usually does. I feel like this film gets to that level.
Yeah, very hard to put your finger on it or to even describe, I feel like. But I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, this film has that in spades, and it's well shot. The acting's amazing. The directing is amazing, and I just feel like it's just one of those movies that it's just something about it is so definitive and beautiful and strong and compelling.
Yeah.
That it's just an amazing film. And just like all the actors that he got. I mean, like Mahershala is in it. I think Janelle Monáe's in it. Like I said, Jarrell Jerome's in it. There's another young actor, I forget his name, who's in this film, who's really good. But there's a lot of the acting's great and the directing's great.
Yeah,
it's just like a must-see film.
Yeah.
Barry Jenkins.
Have you seen oh no, did I lose you? Did I? Oh no. Aww.
Hey,
What happened?
I think so my computer overheated.
Oh, okay. So as long as it's not on my end, I
it's not on your end. It's not your fault at all. It's my fault. My computer sucks.
Oh man, we got it back up pretty fast, and we're able to still go live.
Yeah,
on the same thing?
we're still on the same thing. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah. So like I said, that's my number 8.
Yeah. You died right on Barry Jenkins. You're just like Barry Jenkins, and then
Barry
you had
Jenkins.
this face. It was just frozen face of
Yeah. So that's my number 8. Moonlight. Barry Jenkins, great director.
Definitive 2010s list from you so far. What are we at? Number 7?
It's number 7. What's your number 7?
Number 7, baby. I feel like this could, and absolutely is a definitive 2010s movie. It's got to be. I don't care what anyone says. It has to be. It is John Wick. All right. They killed his fucking dog.
They killed his dog.
Yeah, there's we talked a little bit about John Wick last week, I believe. I don't know if it was before or after we started recording, but John Wick to me symbolizes, again, you can kind of sense a pattern. There was Expendables, and then that kind of died out, and then there was this new kind of wave of blockbusters with the Marvels, and Fast and Furious being, I'm pretty sure, the only other franchise that was rivaling Marvel kind of at that level. But it was,
sure.
It was its own. It's its own thing. It's its own original thing, which is insane to think about. But they're all $250 million productions, globe-trotting adventures, right? John Wick comes in after the fall of the Expendables and after the rise of these like hyper polished, big budget, designed by committee almost movies. John Wick comes in as this small little action movie that is incredibly tight, so well directed. It was a collaboration again between Keanu Reeves and his Matrix buddies, particularly his stunt coordinators. These guys broke onto the scene. They hadn't directed a film before, I'm pretty sure. They broke onto the scene, and they gave the people what they wanted, man. They gave them Neo from the Matrix doing Neo things, but and they set up. I think the thing that goes underappreciated about the first John Wick is that it sets up this universe. Yes. Of this assassin culture, and you get it. Like, you get it right off the bat. There's the Continental Hotel. There's these weird coins that they deal in. There's these rules of honor, kind of, and if you break them, you die, kind of a thing. Everybody's an assassin. Everybody can kill you, just by in a heartbeat, and there's like all this kind of rules of honor and stuff. Ian McShane is in this. He plays great role for him, and he has been doing a lot of these kind of like side characters in big movies, and I feel like this movie comes in perfectly at like the mid-range, and then it, just by virtue of being so well executed, it escalated from, like, it got bigger from there. Like, John Wick now is a franchise. It's a household name. We were talking about how it made it into the top 10 of the top 10 grossing films of 2019, John Wick Chapter 3. But in the beginning, this movie this could have been something that goes on Hulu, and you don't pay it much mind. It's like a stylized kind of, oh, great, they got some LED lights and they made an action movie. Like, that's impressive. Like, this is not that. This is hyper focused. Everybody who's working on this movie, you can feel wants to be in this movie. Michael Nyqvist, who unfortunately passed away, who plays the bad guy in this movie. Well, really, he's not really the bad guy. He's the bad guy he's forced to be the bad guy because his son does a shitty thing, and it wouldn't have been that big of a deal, except they killed his dog. And there's this great moment of a great actor when he's on the phone with John Leguizamo, right? And he's just like, yeah, what the fuck did he do? Like, you hit my son. You're like, why? And he's like, you don't understand. Like, they killed his dog. And the only reply is just like, oh. And it's not like a funny, it's like not done for laughs. It's just like that. Oh, you're dead. Moment, he like understands. He's just like, I can't get out of this. I can't get out of this. Yeah. And it's such a weird like setup for an action movie. But I could blow John Wick all day. But it's just, I do think it belongs in the 2010s again as the kind of towering example going against these like big. Again, these big, like, designed by committee, 12 writers in the writer's room movies. This is just a hyper-focused, well-executed action movie.
I really like that you brought this film up because it's so successful, and it is so kind of... So when I think of this film, so there's like the Transporter films, and then there's also, like, Taken. So this is another film that's kind of like that. Like, the setup is kind of the same. It's all this one guy who's able to do all this stuff. But what makes John Wick so different, first off, the setup with the dog stuff, that's really fun. The universe is so rich. Yeah. Like you said from the jump. Like, there's those other movies don't really have that. True. It's just Taken. It's just a guy who's like, I have skills and I'm going to fucking kill you.
I mean, even in Taken, there's like an underbelly of like these human traffickers, right? But it's just not paid the same level of attention. And granted, that movie's different, but like you said, like from the jump, like we understand the rules of this world, which is impressive. We just talked about Inception. Yeah, it's impressive, and the stunts, and this is a hard R. Yeah,
this is an R. Like those other films, I don't know if Taken's an R or not.
No, it's not.
But it doesn't feel like it. Even if it was, didn't feel not like John Wick.
No, the director's cut kind of does, but yeah. Yeah, John, that was, thank you for bringing that up too. That was a breath of fresh air also. Like, don't get me wrong, I love the Fast and Furious and the Marvel movies, but I needed something that was, again, like the Expendables had gone away and those guys were shredding people with machine guns and it was goofy and it was kind of over the top. And then John Wick came along and was doing these things, but like it was gritty and stylized and it was really cool.
Yeah, there's this one like YouTuber I really like what he calls is like films that scratch the itch. That level of violence It's when you see someone get killed, or like you see like a really brutal, like they get shot in the face, and it's like, oh yes.
It's so weird because we're just talking about Hacksaw Ridge and how like that's violent violence, but it's like gross violence, and this is gross violence, but like you're like, yeah, cha-ching, like
but
next one.
The reason why is like we're sold. They kill the dog, we're
True.
like kill them all, kill
True.
all of them. And if it was like they killed his wife, do we feel the same? If they killed, I don't know, his grandma or something?
How many movies, right? Like how many Steven Seagal movies they killed his wife, or Jean-Claude Van Damme movies? Yeah.
I think the fact that they killed the dog, we're like, okay, kill everybody, and as brutal as possible, you know?
Yeah. And it might sound played out at this point, and which is, again, I think to me super impressive that the concept of they killed his dog already sounds like it's something that's been played out, whereas something that this movie pretty much brought as like a fresh kind of a thing to the kind of revenge thriller genre. I mean, they always kill somebody's son or somebody's wife or daughter or whatever. But yeah, the dog thing like is really still hits, I think, in this movie if you watch it.
Yeah. And that's the impetus for the whole franchise.
Yeah.
They kill the dog, and then a bunch of other things happen that suck him deeper into the world. But if they didn't kill his freaking dog, none of it happens. He's still retired, and he's happy. Yeah.
The dog in the world is what really cements this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's my number 7.
Cool. All right, so my number 7, I debated having this film on it or not. I had it with another film that I'm going to talk about in my honorable mentions. But this was a film where, I don't know, there's just so much about it that I think sort of I really wanted to put it on my list, so I decided to do it. So my number 7 is The Tree of Life.
Oh, okay.
The film. Man, I did this last week. I forget what the director's name is.
Terry Malick.
Yeah, Terrence Malick. So Terrence Malick is a very interesting director for a number of reasons.
Oh yeah.
So he made 2 films in the 70s that are great films, Badlands, and the other one is, I forget the name of the other one.
Sorry. I always forget it too.
Days of Heaven.
Days
of Heaven. Yeah. Uh-huh. So those 2 films are like brilliant. And then he just went away for like 25 years. And meanwhile, there were rumors about films he was going to do. One of them was, the movie was literally called Q, just called Q. And it was supposed to be about the beginning of the universe and all this other stuff. It was, I mean, the stuff you heard about what the Tree of Life was supposed to be was crazy. And, he does come back, and then he does The Thin Red Line, and then he did The New World, and then he finally did this basically legendary movie that we've been hearing about for 20 years, which is The Tree of Life.
Yeah.
And so he, the cat. I feel like this is one of the first Jessica Chastain movies.
It's at the beginning of her.
This put her on the map.
Yeah.
Like before this, she was kind of whatever. Then she was like kind of a name.
Well, I think correct me if I'm wrong. That movie came out in 2012.
The official release is 2011.
2011. Oh, okay. Yeah. I was right there. Yeah.
They probably were shooting it even earlier, but
for sure.
Who God knows how long he spends in post.
Yeah.
I mean, he basically rewrites his movie in post every time.
Not to jump ahead, but that's one of my problems with this movie is I don't know which fucking version to watch. That's one of my problems with it. There's like, I want to watch like the biggest 6-hour version. Give it to me, Terry. Well, there's a Criterion 3-hour cut. Yeah.
And what I saw in theaters was probably like a 2-hour-ish cut.
Yeah.
Probably like 2:45 or 2:30.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like in the end, what you're getting in the extended versions is just more of the poetic, meditative stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The what he's trying to do thematically is always going to be there throughout because like there are some I remember I just rewatched it recently. There are some shots of this movie that I'm just like, I don't know what I'm looking at. I don't know where I am. I don't know what time I'm at, but it's like breathtakingly amazing. There's like a shot where it's like you're like looking at a galaxy, but you're like behind a rock.
I know that shot. I love that shot. Yeah.
And so the reason why they got these shots is like the guy who did some of the special effects for 2001. I think this was like the last film he ever did. He got that guy back to work for him on this film, and I think those are shots that he came up with, and those are like practical shots. It's like fucking crazy.
Yeah.
So this movie is like all over the place in a lot of ways.
It is.
It's all over the place. It's hard to like. There's not really a narrative because like at this point. He sort of transcended doing narrative movies.
No,
like that's just too low for him.
That's
like,
a good way to put it.
Like that's for mere mortals, and like like Days of Heaven and Badlands. They had a narrative. He's done with that.
Yeah, I think the New World was the straw that broke the camel's back. Is like, oh, this is another movie about Native Americans. What are we doing?
Yeah.
What's happening?
He has no interest in creating a narrative anymore. He's looking for poetic moments and building poetry. But like this movie has some of the most beautiful shots ever in the history of cinema. This is one shot where Jessica Chastain, I don't know what the hell, where they are. Are they in heaven?
I think
are they in the afterlife? Yeah. Are they somewhere where she's walking into the sun or something? And it's like a low angle. That's one of those beautiful shots I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And, you're going to, like, a lot of people are going to watch this film and be like, what the fuck is going on? They're not going to understand it. They're not going to get it. They may not be able to really piece together some meaning from it. But if you can go in and understand that you're, like, kind of just consuming poetry through cinema, that's what this film is. And, this is the fact that we even got this film is kind of a miracle. Yeah. Really.
Yeah.
And it's been talked about for decades, like at least 25 years. This film had been talked about before it came out.
I feel like it's been talked about in the decade since it came out with the Criterion re-release, and Terrence Malick has been releasing more movies and making just doing his thing, and whether a lot of the ones don't hit, but this is like the definitive experience, right?
The 2010s was, I think, his most prolific decade.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure. So at least like. So he did like 5 films between The New World and whatever the Hidden Life. He did like 5 or 6 films. I mean, the most he's ever put out in any time period. So he's been very, very prolific during this time.
Yeah. The one thing that I want to like pin to this movie is that it is one of those things. You got to be in a mood. You're right. So you're watching poetry, you're watching a painting, however you want to describe it. But to go back to the Ad Astra discussion we had last week, this movie has Brad Pitt in it. And so I don't know how it was sold at the time, but all I know is that one of my, I'll go ahead and say is my best friend, right? The guy I've known the longest, he's not really a movie guy, like not a movie buff or anything. Like he'll watch the occasional, Inception or whatever. But most of his movies have come through me. And then one time I don't remember if he called me or we were talking on the phone already or something. And this was a great moment because, again, this dude just doesn't really watch movies, but he was like, and his family especially, they're super conservative, religious, whatever. And his family, they don't really watch a lot of movies. We were talking on the phone, and he's just like, so I watched this movie last night called The Tree of Life with my sister and everything. And I was like, oh boy. I was like, you watched it? Like, you watched the whole thing? He was like, dude. I was like, I cried. Like, I was emotional. And I was just like, that is amazing to me. Like that made me so happy that like something like this was, and I know why they watched it. They watched it because Brad Pitt was in it. 100%. That's why. Because they didn't know, like they would just rent movies at the time. It was like, this one's got this, so and so. This, like I remember watching like The Sentinel with Michael Douglas. Like it's just because there's actors in it. And so like they picked this movie up because Brad Pitt was in it, and then they came out of it 2 hours or 3 hours later, and they were like. Whoa, I felt something. And that's just such a great moment when that can happen, when a movie can break through it doesn't have to break through to the masses, but it breaks through to a couple people and they appreciate the art of it. And that's my anecdote I have about this movie. Yeah, I
heard a lot about this. I remember when I was again, this was another one I was in college. I took my girlfriend to it. She didn't really get it. I watched it a few times. I don't think I really got it, but I appreciated it.
I certainly didn't get it. Yeah, when I saw it. Yeah,
I definitely appreciated it a lot. And it's a difficult film, but when you talk about like the critical consensus, this is a film that is going to be talked about for basically forever, I would say.
I think it has that power, that staying power.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
it's funny because when I think about like The Tree of Life is probably like the number one critical film of the decade, or at least pretty close. And the number one like of the popular film was like Inception, and just thinking about how different those films are.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know, it's just funny to me thinking about like how these two things exist in the same universe at the same time.
Yeah.
And they basically kind of came out the same year, almost.
Almost. I have a pick like that too. I have a pick that's just like, is this even the same medium anymore? You know, kind of a thing. Yeah. Yeah,
totally. But yeah, The Tree of Life, Terrence Malick. And it's probably one of his most well-regarded films, actually.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
So that's my number 7. So what's your number 6?
Ooh, my number 6. My number 6 represents all of there was a lot of Villeneuve that I had to pick. That this was really his decade of coming out, getting those big budgets, those Hollywood pictures. Starting with Prisoners, I believe, and goddamn, Prisoners is a strong movie.
Yeah, it's good.
I liked all of them. I liked Enemy. So basically, it came down to Arrival and this movie. And Arrival made me cry like a little baby, dude. Like, I bawled in the theater, and there's reasons for that, but like the way that movie did the whole, I mean, it's a little hokey, I guess, but like when it comes to the revelation at the end, it's just like, it's kind of like one of those like, it was love, Murph. It was love. But like, for whatever reason, the way that Arrival did it with its spooky aliens got to me. But I had to choose. So to represent his entire thing, I got to put Blade Runner 2049 on here.
Yeah.
It's probably the one that, ironically, I've seen more than all the other ones because it's the longest one. And people ragged on this movie. This is so slow. It's boring.
Yeah, I heard that line. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw it with a lot of my friends who thought the original Blade Runner was slow and boring, which I understand, I guess. So again, these are like the same people that like kind of in the same vein of the people like my friend who saw The Tree of Life, and he was just like, whoa, like he hadn't really experienced that kind of thing before. And people were not ready for this from this movie, I don't think, because they, Blade Runner is kind of the thing that I feel like a lot of people know about it, or it's on their minds, or they know it as like the kind of visual template for a lot of the cyberpunk shit that they see. They know like it all came from this mythical thing called Blade Runner, but a lot of people I feel like haven't seen it. Like the Inception fans, I feel like a lot of them probably haven't seen the original Blade Runner. So this movie being out, like being a new kind of take on it, you got Ryan Gosling in it, like Harrison Ford is back. He had just been back in Star Wars, and they're still talking about Indiana Jones. So everyone's like, fucking woo, Harrison Ford. Denis Villeneuve, he did Sicario, like that was a success, right? So all of these things played into it. Warner Brothers gave it this massive budget. They did some cross media promotion. They had all these like some of these animated shorts preceding it. Jared Leto's in this movie, like a lot of stuff going for it. And then it came out, and then it was truly a Denis Villeneuve movie. It was truly a Blade Runner sequel. I feel like even more contemplative than the first one. And I love that, obviously. Maybe not obviously because we haven't gotten to the rest of my list, but now we've gotten all the action shit out of the way and like the silly stuff, and now we're getting into the real contemplative stuff that I like. And again, this movie represents Arrival, and it represents a couple other movies from Villeneuve that I liked this decade, but it's a Blade Runner sequel. Ridley Scott signed off on it, right? He's my favorite director of all time. And there's a lot I'm sure you have a lot to say about Blade Runner. I don't want to get too into the weeds with it, but is it too long? Is it too this and that? I don't care. The mood that it gives me and the kind of the mode that it puts you in, like it puts your brain into like a different wavelength.
Yeah,
and you just kind of sit there for a while. And I mean, granted, it has some action and some stuff, but like I think it nailed the mood, and it just makes you think about humanity or whatever, existing, whatever you want to say. Yeah.
So when we talked about Ad Astra, I talked about like how every time I saw that movie, there was someone asleep next to me.
Yeah. Fair.
This I had a similar experience with me and my girlfriend. We watched this somewhere in like I don't even know where we were in the East Bay where we saw this movie. And I love this movie. I love this movie a lot, and it's going to show up later on my list. But like, yeah, people just this was another one people kind of didn't get. I saw it like twice. One time, someone was kind of asleep. The second time, someone was actively snoring next to me, actively snoring. And unlike Ad Astra, there wasn't a monkey that showed up where it was just like that moment that woke them up.
Yeah.
This movie didn't have that, so the people just kept sleeping.
True.
But I never found this movie boring.
Neither did
at all. I mean, it definitely takes you places. Like I feel like the film. There's a turn this film takes where, like, when Kay believes that he's like kind of the prophet or whatever, like, and the story is taking you in that direction, like that. I remember that was a real moment where I was like, "Whoa, what the fuck is this movie doing?" Like, I'm really kind of on the edge of my seat. But then it kind of meanders a bit.
It meanders a lot, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I feel like it has direction. Like, I can see it's
absolutely.
going somewhere. You know, I can. And the only thing I'll say about this movie is that the ending, the end fight is really interesting. Where like where he has that moment where he goes and he sees Joy, which is one of the greatest names for a character ever. Yeah. If you really understand what that acronyms could stand for. But anyway, so he goes and he sees her, and then he realizes that it's all kind of bullshit or whatever. But then he's like, my purpose is to fight for this other thing. And so he intervenes. And that fight, which is great, but it feels a little Hollywood.
Yeah,
a little bit.
That was exactly what I was gonna say. Yeah,
feels a little Hollywood, but I don't care because it's the thing about it is like this is a Roger Deakins shot, Denis Villeneuve directed film.
Right. How can you?
And they are like at the top of their game. It is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And the way they shot that scene is so good. So you're like, okay, maybe this is a little Hollywood, but this is like what's good about Hollywood. It's beautiful. It's artistic. It's dramatic. It's everything I want.
And it didn't make any money.
Well, it did. It did. Okay, I would say
it did. Yeah, but it didn't.
But they're not. But they're not going to make another one anytime soon.
No.
But if it really did well, they would have made another sequel.
Yeah.
But it probably was because again, now he's going to do Dune. So I don't think they would have done Dune if this movie made no money.
True.
And
I think it's for the better that way. We don't need a Blade Runner every 3 or 4 or even 5 years. We need a Blade Runner every 30 years, right? If even that, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing for me going into this movie, I was like, why would you ever want to do a sequel to Blade Runner?
Yeah.
It just felt like something where you couldn't get anything good out of it.
I'm on the opposite end of that. I've always wanted a Blade Runner sequel only because I feel like the original one was so underappreciated, and if you did something to sex it up to kind of bring it to modern audiences, but then I realized I was wrong because this movie did not do that. It did Blade Runner kind of the same way, like it fired up the soup again, and then it just let you simmer in that soup for 3 hours, which is a lot better than, because my mind automatically goes to like, what if we get like a Star Wars set in the Blade Runner universe, right? Like in that, like that's a really solid world that they built with the, like there's a lot of, you could do corporate intrigue and espionage and things like that. And ultimately, the story is about what it means to be human. And I'm glad that they kept it at that. Because for me, I was just like, fucking make Blade Runner again, but add explosions. And I'm glad that they didn't do that and I was wrong.
Yeah. I'm really impressed by the movie, like what it did. The more I watch it, the more I love it. It's just so beautiful. Same. It's so well shot. Just everything about it's great.
Yeah. So,
cool.
Onwards.
Yeah. All right. So my number 6 is The Social Network. And so we were talking about this a little bit before we went on air, but this Quentin Tarantino was like kind of, I guess they're slowly releasing through some podcast his top 10 films of the decade. And he said this was his number 1 film by far. I feel like this is a film that is going to be talked about a lot for a number of reasons. I feel like it really speaks to the ethos of our time.
Yeah.
And
it's funny because it came so early. This movie came out 10 years ago, and this is ultimately the one that has kind of defined where we are at this point in time still. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it was a bit prescient because, there's a lot of things we didn't know about the potential of where the world was going, about, Zuckerberg and Facebook and what it was going to become.
And folks, we're here.
Yeah, we're here.
We're here now.
Facebook is like the 5th or 6th highest by market cap company in the world.
Yeah.
And he's super rich because of Facebook. And yeah, this movie just details sort of a origin story of Mark as a person and why he did it, at least what the film posits.
Yeah.
And again, this is probably one of the greatest scripts of all time from
Sorkin,
from what's his name? Yeah, Aaron Sorkin. Mm-hmm. And I saw this. There's this really funny video on YouTube where they talk about Sorkinisms.
Yeah.
Like he has these recurring lines of dialogue and there's recurring like themes. Mm-hmm. Actually, mm-hmm. There's this weird stuff about, I forget what it is, but the stuff about chickens. Something about like you gotta I'm gonna like hold a chicken or something, and then he pays that off in this movie where like what's his name is like holding a chicken because he has to join this frat or whatever.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's crazy. Like when you see it, you're like, what? He put that into this movie? It's so funny. But anyway, like I think this this film is like super brilliant. I'm there you go. It doesn't like, it's super bright behind me.
Well, now you're super bright too.
Yeah. So like this film is really well written. I mean, the first 10 minutes of this movie is just some of the most brilliant writing ever. Yeah, basically. Yeah. It's just so good, and getting the combination of Aaron Sorkin and David Fincher. I mean, they really knocked it out of the park with this.
Wild, yeah.
And I just, what I think really works about this film, like thematically, I think it really speaks to sort of, like I said, the ethos and sort of the problems of our era, where you have a guy who does some things that are like kind of morally ambiguous. Did he really steal from them? I don't know. Maybe not. I mean, the character even says, look, if you wanted to invent Facebook, you would have done it. You wouldn't have stolen it from me. Mm-hmm. Like, you guys had a shitty idea. I had a better idea. And I just went with it. Right?
Yeah.
And what I like, too, is, like, the Sean Parker character, like, really lays it down as, like, no, you don't need... This thing isn't going to make you a millionaire. It's going to make you a billionaire. And I think putting that out there, like, that's the real dream now for people, is, like, to create something that's going to make you that rich.
Because and it's all within Silicon Valley, right? All within tech companies. Because tech companies is, if you would have made this movie in the 80s, I think it would have been Wall Street, right? I think this movie is that.
Yeah, you would have been a day trader or something like that.
Yeah. It's like you said, it's prescient, and I think just to add a little thing to it, I think it's underselling a little bit to say, oh, it's just a biopic about Mark Zuckerberg, because you've seen so many other biopics, and you can even go all the way down to like a Lifetime original movie, the story of Zuckerberg, but really putting everything you just said, like really getting the idea into people's heads of like the kind of paradigm shift that this movie represents is the real strength and kind of the horror of it too.
Yeah, the fact that someone who is a weird, antisocial, very arrogant, like 20-something-year-old guy can create billions of dollars, and that's just the surface. That's just the surface. Yeah,
like you could talk about like the powers that are controlling. The Facebook is one of the powers that is controlling everything. You can make that argument now. Really sets the stage.
Yeah, I mean the Facebook has so much power that he could use it. I mean, he won't, because he's just going to use it to make money, which is, sort of more ambiguous.
Honestly, probably for the best.
Probably for the best, yeah, because he could literally use it to change people's opinions about different things.
Yeah, he could be a Dr. Evil
Yeah.
in a flash.
Just straight up, he could be like, I'm going to make everyone hate cheese.
Yeah.
And just flood, cheese makes you get cancer. Cheese is bad. Blah, blah,
He's
blah.
got his fingers on those dials. He could blast you that way. Yeah.
Yeah, and just blast you with ads. The amount of information that Facebook has and generates is so valuable. So valuable. And yeah, this, and it all started because some guy got dumped. He got mad.
Right.
He created this thing.
It's like the hot or not thing.
Yeah, hot or not. And then later on, he kind of gets this idea, and then he goes with it. And then it becomes one of the most powerful media companies in human history.
Yeah. And I think it's still to this day, to me, it's amazing that this movie came out when it did, that it came out 10 years ago and where we are today. And you could trace all of it back to the way that it was depicted in that movie even. And you could say, like, a lot of people, there's a lot of back and forth and a lot of, like, litigations, right? Of, like, this isn't true, the Vanderwinkles or whatever, or, like, this is bullshit, this is not bullshit, yada, 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 yada. But I think, like, ultimately the message of the film, like, the tone that it's set, like, as it's a David Fincher film, so it's got to have that, like, it makes your skin crawl a little bit and you don't know why. I think now in 2020, we kind of know why. I think that's the most impressive thing about this movie is that it came out when it did. When Facebook really, it was a big deal, but it wasn't like...
It wasn't public.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't public. It wasn't like altering people's opinions about reality in a way. Yeah, crazy stuff.
Yeah, very prescient. And again, one of the best scripts of the decade for sure.
Yeah.
Of a film. Cool. Yeah. So what's your number 5?
Yeah, your list is pretty definitive so far, I'd say. What's my number 5? My number 5 is Black Swan.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we're getting into the subconscious here, into my subconscious at least. Black Swan, Darren Aronofsky's Black Swan. What can I say about this movie? I had seen Requiem for a Dream, and that kind of fucked me up a little bit. And then this movie came out, and it was new, and it was exciting, and there was all this buzz about, like, Mila Kunis, Natalie Portman. Whoa, what are they going to do with it? And I didn't quite, like, I had seen Requiem, but I didn't really know what to expect. And, I really like psychological thrillers. I'm really, really super into psychological thrillers. We could talk about David Fincher, all day.
Yeah.
And this movie kind of operates as a psychological thriller, and then it gets, like, it just, like, goes to another level at some point, and you just, like, kind of witness it kind of goes inside her head at towards the end of it, but my favorite part about this movie is the experience of watching it with other people, because I saw it by myself the first time, and then I kind of pulled one at a time my buddies into it, all my different friends into it, and everybody had a different breaking point. Everybody was like, it was the fingernail scene, it was the scene in the bed with the mom, whatever, like everybody had a different breaking point to this movie. And, like, by the end of it, everybody's, like, scarred, and they're like, fuck you, why'd you make me watch that? But I think, I don't know what it is about this movie, but it's not, like, the most relatable thing in the world. Like, I'm not a ballerina, right? But it says a lot about society, and a lot about the expectations that are put onto people and the expectations that people put upon themselves. It's like this snake eating its tail thing. Vincent Cassel's in this movie, and he's fucking disgusting. And I feel like he's, in a way, he's like the prototype for, like, the Harvey Weinsteins, right? Or like the gymnastics coach, the guy who, like, abused all those hundreds of girls, right? Like, he gives off that vibe, and you don't know, like, you hate him in the movie, but, like, I don't know, I do think it's not as prescient, might not be the word, but, like, it works on a couple different levels. It works as a psychological thriller, it works as, like, a societal commentary, and ultimately what I like about it is that it puts you in this, like, it puts you in, like, a headspace, it puts you in a mood, and it freaks you out. It's not horror. Because that's the thing, like, I like horror movies. I love it. I love all the, all the Halloweens and all that stuff. But, like, to me, horror has never been about, like, the guy killing the girl, or, like, the blood splatter, or, like, all this crazy shit. To me, horror is internal. Always has been. To me, horror has just been, like, people are the scariest shit. Like, I know Aliens, we talk about Alien all the time. It's one of my favorite movies. But I would still pick something like this to be scarier to some people than an alien, because I think real horror comes from within, and that's what this movie does. It gets under your skin, literally.
Yeah,
so that's why it's on here.
Yeah, for sure. It's a disturbing film, and I feel like it's about sort of like how the artist can sort of self-destruct, trying to reach something that they can't get to.
That too. Yeah, I didn't even touch on that. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, because she's just like so obsessed that it is destroying.
Why is she obsessed? Like her, she has like a Carrie type of a mom, right? Who's constantly pushing her and all this stuff. Like there's a lot of stuff in this movie. But if you don't care about any of that, at the very least, it's creepy and it gets under your skin.
Yeah, it is super creepy. Yeah.
You just watch someone self-destruct. But yeah, that's the wavelength that I prefer to work on when it comes to psychological thrillers and stuff. A little surreal, just a tiny bit of surrealism, and just real unnerving stuff.
Cool. Yeah. All right. So my number 5 is, in our 2019 list, we both have this as our number 1. So I'm listing The Irishman as my number 5. We talked a lot about that, but yeah, this film, again, this is another film that's been in the works for a long, long time. Kind of wish it could have come earlier, but it's still really great seeing all these guys, Keitel and Al Pacino and De Niro, and then seeing some of the new guys like Jesse Plemons and even what was the guy? I forget the Ray Romano. All of them give good performances. And look, this is a brilliant Scorsese movie. The directing is amazing. Yeah. And there's some really, really, like the stuff with the gun. Again, that scene with the gun where he's picking a gun. It's hilarious.
Yeah. It's all in there.
And he does that assassination and they do it in one shot. It's just brilliant. It's brilliant. It's everything you want out of a film like this. It's everything you want.
Yeah, and we talked about it at length so just a shameless plug, check out the other list.
Yeah, check out our 2019 and spoiler alert, The Irishman's number 1 for both of us.
Yeah, right. What a weird coincidence. must be pretty good.
Yeah, it must be a really fucking good movie.
Yeah.
And I just love the fact that all this stuff happens and then at the end they pull it around to the theme of the film, which is like about you got to care about your legacy.
Yeah. And
he did all these things, but in the end, no one remembers who, what's his name is?
Jimmy Hoffa.
No one knows who Jimmy Hoffa is. His daughter won't talk to him. He's all by himself. He's picking out his own coffin. He's afraid to close the door at night. And it's like, what life does he lead at the end? It's horrible.
Yeah. What's funny is, again, I was telling Ibrahim, I saw Godfather Part 3 for the first time last week. That movie kind of has the same vibe, right? Like it's like just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. It's a film about legacy, but it's like not done well at all. At least as well as
not like The Irishman.
Not like The Irishman. Like The Irishman is like it really opened my like. If The Irishman didn't exist, I feel like Godfather Part 3 would have been the gangster legacy movie. But this movie is like there works on so many more levels than just that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's brilliant, and it's one of my absolute favorites of his.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just, there's, again, there's some stuff to nitpick about. Like if you're, I don't know. I think there are some people, they're just not really sold on it. They're not into it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's part of what works about the movie is just like some people aren't into Joe Pesci because they're like, who the fuck is Joe Pesci, right? Like,
yeah.
Watch Home Alone, or like you don't even recognize him because he's so old. But that's kind of the theme of the movie. So I like that about it.
Yeah, but like if you really kind of get what they're trying to get at, it's just so rich and poetic and brilliant, I think. So yeah, that's my number 5, The Irishman.
Cool.
So what's your number 4, Lucian?
All right, we've broken into the second half here. Mm-hmm. Number 4 is after all of the Blade Runners and the Black Swans and the kind of inside your own head thing, I'm going to take it a little bit outside of my own head, but not Too much. Prometheus is my number 4.
Oh, yes, Prometheus.
Very divisive film. Very divisive. This was the one, baby. The alien's back. Ridley Scott is back. I believe the problem with this is that they brought in extra writers. They brought in Damon Lindelof, who is incapable of taking his head out of his own ass. Incapable. I fucking hate Lindelof. But anyways, I mean, he does. He comes up with really cool concepps. So
him and JJ have similar problems.
Yeah, correct.
They like the little mystery box.
Yeah. Ooh, look over here. It's a magic trick. It's a bad magic trick, and you're bad at it. Anyway. So that's one of the reasons I bring that up, is that was one of the reasons that people shit on Prometheus, because it was like supposed to be the prequel to Alien, and again, Ridley Scott is doing it, and then right off the bat it just gets up its own ass. It's just, there's so much to keep track of, and none of it is explained like explicitly, and it's like part art film, part horror film, part thriller, and it gets the cast gets lost in and it's a very good cast. I mean,
it's amazing.
Idris Elba, Charlize Theron, fucking
Noomi Rapace.
Yeah, Guy Pearce is in this. I mean, and again, everybody kind of at the height of
Michael
the powers.
Fassbender.
Yeah,
he's amazing.
David.
I mean, he that is one of his characters. Like David in this movie, he is amazing as that character. Amazing.
Yeah. And David's kind of sows the seed of like Ridley Scott really not being able to let go of Blade Runner. That's because Alien Covenant came out after this, and that was really him not being able to let go of Blade Runner and wanting to make that movie about AI and fuck everything else. But what I love about this movie, obviously, it's the experience of when it came out, right? That's like pretty much, for better or worse, my number one criteria for most of these films. I was so excited about this, and again, Ridley Scott has been my favorite director, even before this. And the cinematography in this film, I believe, is not talked about as much as it should be. They went to Iceland, and the shots that they got there really makes you feel like you're on an alien planet. Like the way that they did it, and a lot of it is practical too. Ridley Scott is they built the ship. None of it is green screened or anything. They actually built the front of the Prometheus. Really cool practical stuff. I just think the problem with it is that it gets lost in its own sauce for a bit with the story. But the elements that are there are really, really good and well executed. And what's even funnier about it is that they put so much R&D into Prometheus, and it's so beautiful that when they made The Martian, they ended up reusing a significant amount of this stuff, the helmets, the suits. They just repainted them and stuff.
I love The Martian too. That's another good one.
So that was the thing. I was trying to decide between this one and The Martian, but for me, this hits closer than The Martian because it was trying. I feel like Ridley Scott almost, because he's been not shackled. Happily working in the Hollywood system for 20 years, right? Like he's getting $200 million. He was getting $200 million.
He's one of their go-to guys, big time.
100%. Like if you have a movie and you don't know what to do with it, you give it to Ridley Scott.
The thing about Ridley, he's known for getting work done very quickly.
Yeah, very efficient. Very efficient.
Very efficient.
Yeah. But I feel like he comes through in this movie. Like his personal touch comes through in this movie because it's Alien and it's going back to kind of his heyday, right? Or the thing that got him started, pretty much. His signature comes through in this with the beautiful cinematography juxtaposed with the horrific imagery of the Giger stuff. It's in there, and I think people need to give it another chance and not get so lost in the plot and the contrivances, because there's a lot of contrivances that we have to get from point A to point B. But I think it's a beautiful film, both to look at and I think it's more poetic than people give it credit for. So that's why I put it on here over The Martian, which The Martian is a better film, I think. But the writing is really kind of what the writing and the directing
differentiate them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But this movie, I feel, is a little more contemplative. And I really like it. I really like Prometheus.
I'm right there with you. I really, really love Prometheus. Prometheus is one of the films I would put up there on my list of films that I like that a lot of people hate. It's way up there for me. I think that the way I would describe Prometheus, I was just thinking about this, and I think this is the way that I would best describe it. I think it works beat by beat, but not plot point by plot point. There are plot points with the way that these scientists act when they act hella dumb, but it's because they're trying to fulfill genre premises. It's we need a horror scene where someone gets killed. Yeah. Okay, but you have a scientist they're taking off their helmet in an unknown terrain.
Yeah.
This dude's a biologist and he's grabbing a fucking snake. He's never seen it in his life. Like a scientist wouldn't do that. But they're trying to fulfill like, oh, scary thing happens and he gets killed. Yeah. And then because he gets killed, he gets infected and then his infected self goes and kills some other people. Yeah. Okay, I get it. I see what you're trying to do there. But I think this has some of the most brilliant horror scenes, sci-fi horror scenes ever.
Straight up. Yeah. Straight up, dude.
When she has to abort the fetus.
Oh, so
one of the greatest scenes ever in any sci-fi horror movie. And I'm telling you, there's something.
And it was practical.
I don't know why it works for me, but like when the engineer fights the Kraken, like that is, I don't know what it was about that. There was something like Lovecraftian about it.
Yeah, very
It's
creepy.
just so brilliant. Like to see, like, oh, you thought that you were the most powerful, intelligent, evil thing. Well, welcome to this Kraken, baby.
It's like watching a nature documentary. That scene. That's what it like. It feels like you're watching a nature documentary of these like life forms that are alien, doing the things that they would do in their natural habitat and just fucking eating each other.
I cannot describe how much I love that scene. Mm-hmm. Like when I saw it the first time, it was like I can't even really put into words what I felt, but it was something so transcendently horrific, but also kind of purely true to the genre that I was just blown away by it because it's just such a great payoff to that thing. Because, you have this super intelligent, super strong, very powerful being who is like overpowering these humans that it created and is like trying to snuff them out. And then this afterbirth of their creation from the other thing they created kills them and then creates the alien, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just like when you see that thing jump out, grab the dude, and it's got like it's a super face hugger. It's got like 10 tentacles. And he's just dead. He's dead. It's unbelievable.
Like the race of people that created all other people flushed like that. But I think again, like to put a pin in it, like the thing that really works about this movie is or at least the thing that sticks with me outside of all of the really great like inventive like practical effects and stuff like that is just like it tries to do the Blade Runner thing a lot like earlier than Blade Runner, where it's just like it has all these big ideas and it's not quite able to get to those big ideas because it gets in its own way of like trying to be a horror movie and trying to get through these plot details and stuff. But like I think those big ideas are really, really solid about like the creators and the created and all that shit. And I think that's what Ridley was really trying to go for, but he was making like a $150 million movie.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. Anyways, we could talk about Prometheus all day, but that's my number 4.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, my number 4 is another movie about big ideas, Interstellar. So I really like this film. What I like about this film for me is that, again, Christopher Nolan is using the powers that he's been given to try and make this is another film not based on anything. It's just about pretty much hard science concepts. And it is a huge budgeted movie. And it's just basically about traveling through a wormhole. And
did he ever say like what the impetus for this was? Like, is it a personal experience of his?
Well, okay, so here, this film, I believe, is another interesting story. So the film, at least as far as I understand, so his brother wrote it. Yeah. And his brother wrote it probably around the time when Nolan was doing Inception. Steven Spielberg was attached to direct it for about 4 years.
He's the go-to.
Then he dropped out, and then Nolan came in. And so then I think they rewrote the script, and they together created the movie that we see now. Mm-hmm. And I think it was just basically just based on some theoretical physics stuff, pretty much.
Oh, okay, so the whole "it was love, Murph." That's not like him trying to say something about himself.
I think Christopher Nolan.
That's my struggle. The reason I'm asking is that's my problem with Nolan is that I can never penetrate through to the guy. He's always the guy that's like this great architect who is able to build these.
Oh yeah, he's the architect, dude. He doesn't like.
But he doesn't like.
If it was up to him,
stuff doesn't quite.
If it was up to him, there would be no emotional stuff at all. He does that because us silly humans need that to connect with the story. For him, it's all about the architecture. It's all about the plot architecture and the story stuff and how can, and it's about time too. He loves like, oh, how can I create
time
for real? Yeah. It's like, so this is my story, but how can I tell a story about how that affects time?
Yeah.
And so with this one, it's like, oh, when people are closer to a black hole, time is affecting
my end.
Yep, that's my end. That's what he cared about. So to me, the real selling point for me with this film is like, this is a film that is sort of attempting to be kind of like a 2001, a hard sci-fi kind of film.
True.
And it's trying to do the sci-fi stuff, but be like realistic to what can actually happen in the world, potentially or possibly. Mm-hmm. But I think that there are some of the most brilliant and beautiful scenes of all time are in this film. When they first encounter the wormhole, when they go through the wormhole, like this stuff is just brilliant. Yeah. When they see Gargantua, like, and one of the cool things about that is that's what they actually look like. That's what a black hole actually looks like. Like, we have pictures now.
I do appreciate that. Yeah, the lengths they went to, like all the physicists they tapped for this. Yeah.
And so when you saw that Gargantua in that film, that's basically what a black hole would look like under those circumstances if humans somehow got to a black hole like that. And so all of that stuff, to me, really, I'm glad that I got a chance to see that in my lifetime, something like that. I definitely like the stuff when you get to the 4-dimensional. That scene is very brilliant, and the fact that they did that all for practical effects is crazy.
That's the kind of thing that Jodorowsky would have liked to make if he could, you know.
Yeah, that is crazy and very interesting. But yeah, for me, what sells me on this movie is, I don't care. Yeah, it was love, Murph, whatever. I don't care. That doesn't. I have no feelings one way or another about that.
Okay.
But what sells this for me is like, this guy Christopher Nolan decided, I'm going to make a hard sci-fi, like big budget film, and I'm going to use all the resources I have at my disposal to create something like that in this era, using the technology we have. And I think that he really pulled that off. And you know, I love sci-fi films. A lot of them stray more towards the like kind of, you know, the Star Wars-y, fantastical, not really realistic. And it's cool to see something more like this be made and be successful.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think Christopher Nolan in a vacuum should be my number one filmmaker of all time. It should be my favorite thing because I don't get caught up in a lot of the emotional stuff. I don't really watch, or at least you would think, until I start making these lists and then like all of the fucking trauma comes out. Like I like a lot of movies that are just based on the, you know, the like what's on the screen, like the technical prowess and the kind of architecture of it and the hard science of it and stuff, and the story is there because the story has to be there, kind of a thing. But for whatever reason, you know, he's not my favorite filmmaker, and it's every single time he makes one of these big idea movies, the whatever the emotional core of it doesn't exist, or it like withers away, and then all we're left with is like this incredible achievement, which is to be celebrated on its own. But like that's for whatever reason it just
feels a bit hollow.
It feels a bit hollow. Yeah. And I'm sure I'm not the first one to say that, but
no, you're not.
Yeah, right,
for sure.
But I do love that. I love that you pointed out like he picks a genre and he's just like, I'm just gonna do this now.
Yeah, you know, for real. And you know, I just really appreciate that about him. Like,
me too.
You know, no one else is gonna really be able to do that. I mean, I feel like Spielberg is kind of like, he would be the person who would do this, but he's kind of moved on to another phase in his career where he's like kind of doing the things he wanted to do.
Yeah, and I mean, but Spielberg is like one of the most emotionally manipulative filmmakers of all time. You know. So that this would have been a very different movie.
Yes, it would have been a very different movie for sure. But for him, I think he kind of force feeds the emotional stuff. I think a lot of that comes from the corporate side up top. They're like, hey, you gotta have it in there. Yeah. Yeah, and so he kind of tries to find the most logical way to do that. But otherwise, for him, it's about the technical. It's about the ideas. It's about how can I confer time through this story.
Yeah, I love it. I love that. I'm glad that we had a little discussion on Nolan, because I do really, really like, there's a part of me that really, really loves that. And I'm happy that there's somebody out there that has the money and the power to keep doing these films.
That's what I really appreciate about him. And like this kind of was looming over us is like the whole Tenet thing and like what's going to happen with him going forward. I feel like Tenet is him going further into like stripping out any emotional stuff and like being purely plot driven.
Cool.
But I do want to see him make more original stuff because he's one of the very few. Again, very few. And we talked about the other guy, James Cameron. It came out very recently. He said he was on an interview with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He said he's 100% done with shooting on Avatar 2, 95% done shooting on Avatar 3.
Yeah.
So that's what he's going to be doing for the next, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, is doing more Avatar movies.
No, I think his plan is for the rest of his life. I don't think he wants to do anything else. I think he might have said that, or somebody said that. Yeah.
Well, I saw there was one other original film he had potentially to do, but yeah, Avatar is basically his thing now. But he's the only other person who could do something like Interstellar.
True.
I could totally see him doing Interstellar. See him doing something like that.
Even if I'm telling you now, if Cameron made Interstellar, it would have been a better movie, I think, than what we got.
100%. But that's because like he
would have found a way to put in that, get away from her, you bitch moment that like really connects with audiences.
Yeah, and the other thing too about it is like the whole Dr. Mann plot, where out of the thing, and that was a pretty big moment. Like they pull Dr. Mann out, and it's freaking what's his name?
Jesus, Matt Damon. Yeah,
it's Matt Damon. Yeah, and he's an evil son of a bitch.
Yeah, that was that's a hit or miss side quest in that movie.
Yeah, I mean,
for a lot of people. I mean,
it kind of worked for me a little bit.
I liked it. Yeah.
A little bit, but
I can see viewers getting frustrated 2 hours into that movie, and they're like, "What the fuck? Why?"
And the fucking Matt Damon comes out of the ice,
and he's playing, and he's so stupid. Like you want to talk about like contrivances like that? Come on, like where that was headed.
He's a super stupid villain. Yeah.
But can we just for 30 seconds talk about the score in Interstellar? Probably the most incredible score I've ever heard. Yeah,
brilliant, super brilliant. You know what's funny too is like. I don't know if have you ever heard like some of the really famous scores from I forget what his name is now. The guy who did Koyaanisqatsi. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie.
I have, yeah.
Yeah. So he's kind of doing something very similar to him with the score.
Yeah.
And especially there's some like they're almost like it's almost like he just did basically the same kind of score. Yeah. But it's brilliant. It is really some of the best work he's done, which is saying a lot.
The score is 50 to 60% of the emotional resonance of that movie.
He does a really good job of inserting emotional or feeling some kind of a feeling into Nolan's films.
Yeah, absolutely.
He does a really good job of like adding that layer. Yeah. That sometimes Nolan can't get across himself. Yeah. But the two of them together it's one of the more brilliant collaborations of a composer and a director for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. Cool. I'm glad we had a little talk about it.
Yeah. So I guess now we're on to your number 3. We're getting close to the end here.
3. Oh my goodness. Grab your popcorn. We talked a bit about this movie last week. We were talking about Hollywood and wish fulfillment and Tarantino, and Django Unchained is just one of those movies, man. It's
the meme face.
Whoa! Like this is a movie where I feel like certainly out of the last decade, you could argue Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but like everything lands in Django Unchained. Like everything about this movie lands. Like the performances, the kind of themes, the mood that it goes for. There was I remember a lot of like back and forth and argument about like the use of the N-word in it, and it's just like, okay, sure, you could say Tarantino. Yeah, Tarantino's a bit of a weirdo, but excuse me. This
is like the right time for
like, what the fuck? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. It's stupid.
I would never say that Tarantino. So, okay, The one thing I would really criticize him about is when he casts himself and the dead N-word storage.
Correct, sure, yeah.
When he casts himself in that scene. But otherwise, it's always Sam Jackson or someone else or a racist guy saying it.
Yeah,
right.
And I mean, and all of the racist guys in this movie get their comeuppance, and that's part of the magic of it. This movie is magic. It's actually like. I know it's technically not, because it's like a Western kind of spaghetti Western action thriller kind of a thing, but it's really like fantasy. Like it's like a magical realism kind of a thing.
So I don't know if it's really a genre yet, but he's really like Inglourious Basterds was the first one. Mm-hmm. Like, let's have some Jewish people kill Nazis.
Yeah, right.
Like this type of exploitative wish fulfillment through violence. Yeah. And this is like the other part of that bookend. The Correct. Slave who kills the slave masters.
Yeah. If this is and I can see more your argument as or like your personal dissatisfaction with Hollywood, because then they didn't kill the Manson kids, right? They were just kind of there and they were left as like an omnipresent
because
presence.
Like in this film, he blows up the fucking plantation. He kills them all.
I understand
and you're just like, Yeah,
but that's
like
also...
Manson's the problem in that movie, because he could just whisper in someone else's ear, and then they could all get killed anyway.
Yeah, well, I think that's where he chose. Well, obviously he did that on purpose. He left that there to kind of not to shy away from it. That these monsters are out there. But Django, I feel like, is just because of the genre that it's operating within, or at least trying to pretend like it's operating in, like. It's a revenge thriller. You gotta have your revenge in there. What better revenge than to have on this plantation? And my God, the way they set up that plantation, the characters that we live in there. We spent about an hour, I feel like, in that last scene, just getting to know everybody and seeing how kind of inbred and just fucking caricature everybody is. But as far as we know, that's closer to reality than not. Sure. There's the Don Johnson character in that movie is fucking amazing. As the I forget what his name is, with the plantation owner with the horses that. Anyways, we talked about Django a little bit, but like, it's my number 3 because, again, the time when it came out, I went to see it with all my friends. Everybody was having a rip-roaring good time. It works on many different levels. You can have your brain on and you can say like, oh, what is the filmmaker trying to say in this scene? Or you could just be like, fucking fuck these racists and whatever, right? So it works. It just works. The performances, again, are really strong. I've heard people criticize Jamie Foxx in this movie, that he's not really the lead. It's more Christoph Waltz's movie.
I kind of feel that way too, personally.
True. No, it's true, but I feel like Django is a character. He's supposed to be a vessel for the viewer more than he's supposed to be a character himself. And he's got these like human concerns. He wants to get his beloved out, basically. And so he's kind of a cutout in that way. But other than that, that shoot. I mean, he shoots people to Tupac at the very end of the movie. That's all. I gotta say.
Yeah, but like, I definitely, and again, Christoph Waltz basically went back to back with Oscars. So he won for Inglourious Basterds, which is, I mean, that's probably his best character that he's ever written, and amazing that and he's really good in this film too. And I do feel like he's more of the. He's like the spiritual mentor. Yeah. The thing about his character is like he gets all the most interesting points and moments, other than the fact that Django gets the revenge. Yeah. But he kind of sacrifices himself, and he does a lot of more interesting character moments, I would say. Mm-hmm. But the ending is like, what's so good is the ending is satisfying. I'm like, kill everybody,
100%.
And then he has a showdown with Sam Jackson. The Sam Jackson character is another great character, I have to say. A lot of people give it shit, but like, nah, dude, that was good.
No,
the acting was good.
Really
the writing was good. I thought that shit was brilliant. I thought
surprisingly that was nuanced for a Tarantino character.
Yeah, and just to see him, get revenge on him too.
Yeah.
It's a satisfying movie. It gives you what you want from the premise of the film.
Yeah, there's villains of all kind, Yeah. So that is
I'm a big fan.
Big fan. This movie,
I think it's also his highest grossing movie of all time.
Is it really?
I believe it is. Yeah, in terms of dollar for dollar. But like, if you ingest it, it's probably Pulp Fiction. But yeah, this one made a lot of money.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. But that's my number 3. Yeah, I was kind of shifting it between number 3 and number 2. But yeah, I ultimately is top 3.
Okay, so my number 3 is an animated film. I was a little, so I saw this with my friend, who's another big fan of the superhero genre, and we kind of watched it on a whim. We liked it a lot. I've liked this. The more I've watched this film, the more I think this film is really, really brilliant. And I put this on my list because I feel like you have to talk about this film, I think, if you talk about this decade. So it's Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh, hell yeah. Nice.
Yeah. So this film, again, so when I saw it, I liked it. That was good. I think the writing on this film is really, really brilliant. There's so many moments in this film that at the heart, this film is such a great character film. And it builds up his character in such a powerful way. And like up until like 3/4 of the movie, he's basically an underdog. He's not able to do what he wants to do. He's given these powers. He doesn't know what to do with them. He can't handle it. He doesn't become Spider-Man until very end of the film. And when he has that moment where he decides, I just have to become Spider-Man, and he does the leap of faith, and he jumps, and then you get that beautiful shot where he's going down, but it's the reverse, so it's like the city's coming up, even though he's going down. Just such a beautiful moment, and the animation of this film is unbelievable.
Oh yeah,
it is unbelievable what they did with the animation in this film.
Yeah,
and there's so many things. They make some very strong choices, like with some of the characters, like the way that they animate Kingpin. It's just so funny and brilliant and cool. Like, it's right out of a comic book. That's what's so cool about this film, that this film does. This film is a comic book put onto the screen.
Yeah.
And that's what
the most literal way you could possibly do that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it's so, like, the Miles Morales character, like, what they put him through is really so brilliant. For just if you think about, like, he gets his powers. He sees Spider-Man die. And then he's sort of burdened by that. He's like, Spider-Man's dead. And I have to do something because I'm Spider-Man now in this universe. But he's not really ready. And then these other Spider-Man, his other mentor then becomes the Spider-Man who's a fat alcoholic who wants to kill himself. By the way, that's literally his character. He wants to kill himself.
Yeah.
Which is amazing for this PG-13 like movie. It's like a suicidal fat guy. But then in the end, they kind of both grow from each other. Like, he helps Miles become Spider-Man, and then he helps the Peter B. Parker get over his suicidal tendencies. Like, hey man, there's this moment, this great moment. It's like, hey man, are you all right? You got to get over this thing. You got to move on with your life, and you need to stop trying to kill yourself. He said, and it's literally like basically the conversation, but he says it like really, like basically in this one, like in so many words, and he's like, "Wow, you're right. You're ready to be Spider-Man, and I need to change too. I need to get over my shit." And then he goes back to his world, and he's finally changed. It's a brilliant film, and it's really funny too. Like, yeah,
absolutely.
Like, man, Lord and Miller, they are fucking brilliant, and just the fucking idiots in the Star Wars, the Star Wars people who threw them under the bus.
Yeah.
When they would have probably come up with something actually interesting and different.
Yeah, they really sell that kind of call to adventure and that kind of excitement and the kind of all the fun you can have with it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like this film really canonized the Miles Morales character. Like, we're gonna see him more. He's in like a PS4 game.
Yeah,
it's all about him
now. Yeah,
and you're gonna see him more. Like,
absolutely.
This film is the definitive telling of his origin.
I think it's like a watershed moment for Spider-Man. Honestly,
it is. Yeah,
I really do.
I think a lot of people feel like this is the best Spider-Man movie that's been made about any Spider-Man character. Yeah,
you could absolutely make that argument. Yeah. I think I'm glad you brought up like the writing. I think it's what this movie does extremely well is like the gargantuan task of weaving all of these things, and not only weaving them in, but like introducing them to audiences and people that have never heard of these things, who have never even or not even familiar with the concept of like multiple universes. Because like a lot of people who watch comic book movies don't read comic books, right? And that's a very common thing in comic books to have multiple universes and different, like, Ultimate Spider-Man's coming in here and he's gonna mingle with these people for a bit. Like this movie sells that, but it retains, you know, the funny, and it retains like all of the little things that you would want in an animated movie. Like it's really, really solid, man.
Yeah, and I feel like this is a film to study because it's so brilliant about how it does everything.
Exactly.
Like how it sets up the characters, how it changes the characters, those moments that really make you feel something, you know?
Yeah.
Like he really, like, they make Miles Morales earn the fact that he becomes Spider-Man at the end.
Yeah.
Like it's not just like given to, like there's a lot of movies we see where the character's origin is basically they have powers and they overwhelm everybody, they kill everybody, and they're just too powerful.
Yeah, there's not much of a burden for them.
Yeah, and it's not, you don't really, you're like, okay, well, I guess that's it. This is not one of those movies. Like there's a lot of, and the character, man, like they even say it, like he has like two Spider-Man moments, really. Every Spider-Man, like they see someone die, like there's the Uncle Ben, or like the other one, was it I forget her name, but she sees her dad die, and then Gwen? She sees Spider-Gwen. She sees Peter Parker die. But for him, his uncle dies, who's a bad guy, and he sees the Spider-Man of his universe die. Mm-hmm. So both those things happen to him to push him into becoming the Spider-Man of his universe. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the character goes through a lot, and I think it's really brilliant for, like, you know, thinking about any piece of work, either in the genre or even outside of the genre, of like how to create a compelling protagonist that we really care about. I feel like this film is one of the best, really.
Yeah, huge accomplishment, this movie. That's all I gotta say. Huge accomplishment,
and really out of nowhere. True. I mean, this film was kind of talked about a bit. Like,
it feels like one of those things where, so like, you know, every studio that owns one of these properties is like, we have this slate for the big budget movies, we have this slate for the cinematic universe movies, and we have this slate for the animated movies. Like DC's constantly pumping out Justice League movies, you know, shit like that. And this just feels like Sony putting out a Spider-Man movie because they can, and it turned out to be the best Spider-Man movie they've probably ever put out. Yeah,
for sure. And something that really opens up huge avenues for them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, now they're really excited about Venom and you know, mixing in all of these different characters. But
Morbius,
Morbius and all this shit. But like, honestly, I think they should give these guys more money to do what they want to do. Yeah, for sure. So that's my number 3. Solid.
All right, cool. We're getting close. So what's your number 2?
Dude, I've been dreading talking about this. I've been emotional, honestly, about this, and this movie fucks me up every single time. So my number 2, above all of the other things that, like, I like Expendables and all these explosions and things like that. My number 2 is Lars von Trier's Melancholia.
Okay,
that movie for me is a pretty big moment. So if you know what the movie's about, I need to preface it and say that, like, I'm good. I'm okay. I don't suffer from like crippling depression, right? I'm okay. I'm not in that mindset hardly ever. But I've never seen, like you were talking about, the Tree of Life, right? And you're just watching poetry. This movie is a lot like that. It's got a little bit of the Dogma 95 stuff in it, just for the kicks, but it feels like you're watching a painting, kind of, and the painting is like melting in front of you, and it's just like wrong. Yeah. And it just, and the thing that this movie does is it's interpretive. There is so to kind of put a little skeleton on it, it's a plot about, really it's about these two sisters, but it's one of the sisters' wedding day. Kirsten Dunst plays the lead. She's marrying Alexander Skarsgård. They go to the wedding. Everybody's there at the wedding. Again, Lars von Trier somehow pulls the most mind-blowing casts together for these movies.
Yeah.
John Hurt is in this movie. Charlotte Rampling, of course. Stellan Skarsgård's got to be in this movie. He has to be. He's like cosmically obligated to be in a Von Trier movie. And it starts out that way, normal, and then you get the sense that well, first of all, we get this insane intro. It's like an 8-minute montage of like super slow-mo shots that every single one of them is a painting. Every single frame is a painting, and that frame sits on the screen and it's set to like some Wagner music or something, some like Wagner piece, and it's terrifying, and you don't know why it's terrifying. And all of these are intercut with like shots of the cosmos and planets crashing and stuff. And right off the bat, it just sets this tone. And then it gets into the regular film, which is shot in a Dogma 95 style, really shaky cam, zoom, whatever. And then you get the sense that there's something going on with the bride, right? Like it's her wedding day. She should be happy and excited, and this whole thing is going to shit. And then the whole movie goes to shit. And then we switch about halfway through, and we follow the sister's point of view. And whatever. I don't have to recap the whole movie, but I've never seen a movie that nails what it's like to be in a certain state of mind. Like basically what this movie does is it is like clinical depression. That's what this movie is. Mm-hmm. And what I love about it, and it's a Von Trier movie, so he gets to do this, is that there's no silver lining. There's nothing. There are characters who think that they have, like there's characters who you think are the optimists or who have the silver lining. They end up being crushed by this thing, and they kill themselves, and everybody dies. Everybody dies in this movie. Life is pointless. Life is pain. The earth is evil, right? And I love that so much, and it makes me sound like a psychopath because I probably am. But I just love that a movie can go so balls out. And the performance, the Kirsten Dunst performance, like I think this when I first saw this movie, like I really understood. It's not played up. I mean, at first you think it's got to be played up. This is so fucking weird. Why is somebody acting like this on their wedding day? And it's such a lavish wedding, right? And it's like this great estate and beautiful cinematography. And you're thinking like there's something's going on here. There's something maybe cosmical or extraterrestrial going on with that whole plot. And then you really just realize there's a scene where her sister's trying to get her to take a bath, and she physically can't stand up. And that's when you realize kind of like this mental state is so powerful. And ultimately by the end of the film, it becomes so powerful that it feels like a planet colliding with another planet. And it's true, and it sells it. And again, like it's Von Trier, so people can have differing opinions, but I think out of all of his movies, because usually he's going for shock factor, and I think as much as I love that shit, and I love Antichrist, I love the movies that came after it, I love I like extreme cinema, but I think when he's going for shock value for the purposes of like being emotional or whatever, or like explaining a mental state or something, it doesn't work quite as well as it does in this movie, because this movie is not really shocking. It doesn't have any of those like traditional, like it doesn't have any gore or anything.
No. It's not just like Antichrist like that, no.
Oh God, no. It's just like it's depressing, and there's plenty of depressing movies, but I've never seen a movie that is depression. Like this movie is on a canvas, just a painting of depression. And I think it's really cool. Like we were talking about like how like sometimes you're watching a film and it's like, how does this and Inception exist in the same medium, right? Like this is not a movie. It's not plot based or anything like that. I mean, there's a plot, I guess, but like, yeah, how is it able to just be a thing that you look at for 2 hours and you come out of it with these feelings? And I think that's really impressive about it. And it made it to my number 2 because, again, I saw it when it came out. And, of course, I understood what it was about and I understood what he was going for. And then I've rewatched it since. And, you go through life experiences and you meet people who are in different states. And if nothing else, I mean, I've read online that, like, people who do suffer from this type of depression, like, they should not watch this movie, because if they watch this movie, especially if they watch this movie by themselves, bad news. Don't watch this movie by yourself, right? And honestly, it's not even for everybody, but it just, whatever. I could talk about it, but like, it sells that state of being. It doesn't even sell what it's like. It just is. And it's just awesome. Yeah. I really like it.
Yeah. Like you said, it's like a pure depression shot into your veins.
directly. Yeah, unfiltered. And it's not depressing because there's depressing things that happen to the characters. It just is. It's framed. The backdrop of it is that there's an asteroid or there's like another planet that's colliding with the Earth, right? And there's optimists or scientists that are saying, no, it won't. But all of that stuff is on the sidelines. It's just the feeling of this impending doom. And the fact that by the end of it, you're kind of like, you're on the Justine side, the Kirsten Dunst character. You're like, I'm okay with this. I want this to wash over me, you know? I'm ready for it to end. That's a fucking terrifying thing for a movie to be able to put you in that mindset where you're like, yeah, I think all life should just not exist. Like, get out of my head, Von Trier. So,
yeah, I know.
So that's what I like about this movie.
Because, you know, that kind of, thinking about that, there's so many things that come to my mind, especially if you think about the time we're in right now, where we're in a pandemic and people are isolated socially.
Yes. I just rewatched this movie not too long ago, and that's why I feel even stronger about it now. It was higher on my list, but I feel even stronger about it now that it fits into the current kind of nervousness even better.
I mean, especially, you know, if you think about like climate change, some people would think that climate change is sort of an inevitability that's going to destroy us, like an asteroid coming at us. We see it. We're not doing anything about it. Yeah. And it, you know, I mean, there's there are some people who feel that way about certain things about the way that the world is right now. Mm-hmm. They feel like there's this thing coming. Yeah. They can't stop it. No one's stopping it. And they're just like, okay, wash over me, destroy me.
Yeah.
And get me off this planet.
And you see all these memes, like we've gone so far into it that like now there's memes about like asteroid 2020, like please just end it. And it's just like
Cthulhu 2020.
Cthulhu 2020, yeah, please, global extinction event. And it's just like, it's funny to joke about, I guess.
Or even like the people that stand for what's his name, for Thanos. They're like, yeah, Thanos was right, kind of stuff.
Yeah, end it. Like, holy shit, like, in a decade. This movie came out in 2011, and people might think that they're feeling that way, but I promise you, if you watch this movie, you will not feel that way. I mean, it has this way of, like, being so utterly in that, like, just offering no solace that it makes you cling to whatever life and humanity there is in you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
powerful stuff.
So that's my number 2. Just really, 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 really affecting movie. Yeah,
cool. All right, so my number 2, it was one that you've had on your list. This one's higher on mine. It's Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah.
I think I went through. It was a couple months ago. I would watch it. I think I watched it like every day for like a couple days. I just love the movie.
Cool.
Fucking 4K of that movie.
Yeah,
oh boy,
behind me, dude. Yeah.
Oh boy, it's beautiful, man. And again, this is a Roger Deakins, Denis Villeneuve, just brilliant. And like, again, this is another movie. You know, Ryan Gosling, who like, he's another guy who's put out a bunch of very interesting. It's going to be in my honorable mentions. He exists to try and create movies like this, get them made. Yeah. By putting his name on it. Yeah. Because without him, this movie might get made with someone else, but like he's like, yeah, I want to be a part of this. Yeah. And you know, I love him. I love his work, and I think this is one of the best things he's been in. I really like it. I mean, Anna de Armas is brilliant in this. I forget the girl who plays the other like prostitute or whatever.
Mackenzie Davis.
Mackenzie Davis. I love Mackenzie Davis. She's so awesome.
Love her. Yeah.
Love Mackenzie Davis. And like this movie's just so brilliant to me. It's just so brilliant and it's so beautiful and it just works on so many levels. The more I watch it, the more I enjoy it. You know, 2 weeks ago, the Bay Area looked exactly like this movie.
And it's relevant. Like it keeps coming up. It's like the cinematography and the kind of the atmosphere, the mood that it set, the dystopia that it created is like people are saying like, oh, we're headed towards Blade Runner. We've been in Blade Runner. We've been living in Blade Runner. Yeah.
We're there. The other thing too is like there are so many films that you can see one shot and know the film.
True.
That shot when he's creeping into the orange mist in Vegas. Yeah. Like that is one of the most iconic shots in the history of cinema. Yeah, to me, 100%.
It has become,
Yeah, like you see that, and it tells you something. It gives you a mood. It gives you a feeling. You get this sort of it's beautiful, but it's dreadful because it represents this sort of destruction of everything that we know and love. But it's so purely human because, as we see, human beings are the ones that create an environment that causes that, and that's a real thing. Like that actually happened in real life. Where in the Bay Area, we woke up and outside it was freaking orange.
Yep.
I don't know what else to say about the movie. I feel like that says everything you need to know about the movie. That one day we woke up, we looked outside, and we said, "Oh, that's Blade Runner. That's Blade Runner 2049." And we didn't even we all got it. Every one of us got it. Oh yeah, that's like that scene when he went into Vegas and it was orange.
Yeah,
that's art. That's what art's supposed to do. You know.
Yeah, you nailed it. Yeah, and to sprinkle on top of that the whole joy thing that you mentioned earlier, like we're already there. The whole companionship thing, like AI bot. We might not have AI bots, but like we're there, man. Like the people on the internet are fucking lonely and desperate. Everybody's lonely and desperate. It's we're there.
We are there. Yeah. I've seen a whole bunch of things where people play these like relationship dating anime games where you're an avatar and you go out and you date people. Yeah.
Like the visual novels or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's absolutely just whatever the original setup, the sequel I think built on and brought us closer to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. It's a film that for me I really love, and the more I watch it, the more I get out of it, and I think it's brilliant.
And it's good. It's good that you can say that because I do encourage repeat viewings for this because a lot of people, like I said, a lot of people thought it was boring and slow and boring. But if you just keep going back to it and you just because the first time you see it, you might be, expectations play a big role. But then if you really just settle in and you kind of just go for the ride, I think you'll have a much better time.
Yeah, when you settle into this movie, it really gives you a good feeling.
Yeah, it does. It's an optimistic one as opposed to what we just talked about.
Yeah. All right, cool. So now we're almost at our number one. So let's now take some time to talk about our honorable mentions, like the things that were really, really close to making our list, but we kind of had to give them the boot. So yeah, what are some of your honorable mentions for this list?
Yeah, so like I said, I put a lot of movies that kind of stand for other movies, like Expendables and perhaps John Wick are kind of in there to make up for the lack of the Fast Fives and things like that, which I do love, right? But there's just not enough room, so I'll just rattle them off. Kick-Ass, a lot of Matthew Vaughn's work. Like Matthew Vaughn's movies this decade have just scratched that itch that Guy Ritchie never could. Kick-Ass is one of those movies, and the first Kingsman are just like real pinnacle kind of like, again, smart action. Inception, obviously honorable mention. It didn't make my list because of personal reasons, I guess, or just other movies that affected me more. Let's see. I don't know how many of these you want me to go through. The Conjuring, as far as horror movie goes.
Yes.
Like, again, we were talking about how for me horror is not so much about like the splatter and the kind of the thrill of the chase kind of a thing. But this movie, a fun anecdote about The Conjuring is that when they were submitting to the MPAA to get a rating, the MPAA could not give them a reason why it's rated R. Like they couldn't give them a content descriptor as to like to point to say this is why this movie's rated R. They just said it's too fucking scary. That was it. They're like there's not any gore in this or anything. It's just too oppressively demonic and scary, and I love that, and it nails that in the 70s vibe and everything. So definitely Conjuring for horror movies. I have more, Whiplash, absolutely, just fucking solid. The Martian we talked about. 13 Hours was going to be my number 10, but Expendables booted it. I've probably seen, who am I kidding? I've seen Expendables more. And then I know you're going to talk about probably Nicholas Winding Refn, Drive and Neon Demon in particular for me. Neon Demon was going to be on the list, but I ended up swapping it for something else. Baby Driver against There's Only One Edgar Wright. When it comes to, and here's the thing, I'm clearly a very huge pessimist. Annihilation was on my list for the longest time. Alex Garland's Annihilation. I put it over Ex Machina because Ex Machina is terrifying, but I feel like the whole AI thing is it was played out almost. Well, it wasn't played out when it came out, but it's certainly played out now in my mind. But Annihilation is the thing that is like, I love movies that like set up a normal kind of a thing, and then they end up to life is meaningless, or like we're creatures that are built to destroy ourselves or whatever, like for whatever reason that just like triggers, like the Black Swan, the artist self-destructing. Something about self-destruction just does it for me.
Does it for you.
And then the movie that I probably saw the most, my biggest honorable mention is Birdman, the Iñárritu film, because that was the film that I saw that I didn't expect to like as much as I did, and that was the film that turned me on to the fact, and I still believe this to this day, is that ultimately the actor is the special effect for me. Like I don't care. It's nice when you can be a Christopher Nolan and you can architect all of these great moving parts, right? And you can do these great sets and stuff. But like, to me, the most important thing is the actor in front of the camera doing just somersaults upon somersaults of acting. And Edward Norton and Michael Keaton and what's her name, Emma Stone in this movie, just fucking go for it. And I love it. So those are my honorable mentions.
Yeah, those are some good ones. So for sure for me, like Drive, I really, really, really like that movie. I think that's Nicholas Winding Refn's best film.
Yeah, I think so.
I think the combination of the music, the feel. I mean, that first like 10 minutes. I mean, there's very few things like it in cinema that just gives you that like.
Oh yeah, it's set up the whole like vaporwave movement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is just like I don't know. There's just something cinematic about Los Angeles. People doing, doing a robbery,
illegal shit. Yeah,
doing, like that is basically one of the pure tenets of film.
Yeah,
it's just like
you got like
LA
mob bosses. Yeah, it's great.
And the way he does it, and like that speech at the beginning, like that he gives. Oh my God, so brilliant, those lines.
Yeah.
It just, I love that film, and there's a lot that I can say about it, but I really, 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 really like that film.
Same.
Another one for me is Get Out. Jordan Peele's Get Out. I feel like that's a really important film. It's like teetering on the edge for me. I think it's really good, great script, and who knows where he's gonna go in his career, but it all starts there. Like that's his trajectory. That's what he's about as a filmmaker. Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Really, really good film. Her. That's another film that I feel like is very emblematic of the time.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's another film. If I gave like an extended list, that would definitely make it.
Same.
Toy Story 3, really good film. Very, like, you talk about emotionally manipulative, but like that film hits it home.
Yeah,
big
dude,
time.
fuck that movie. Fuck that movie. I was in the theater and I was just like, I don't even care. Like, I don't like, for the record, I hate Disney movies with a passion. I just ended up at Toy Story 3. And I was like feeling a tear coming on, and I was just like, God damn it. They did it.
Well, they really do it. So, like, there's two times. First, they're going to get incinerated. And then, like, when the older kid talks to Woody, like, that's like, man, that's...
Yeah, nobody wants to grow up. That movie really plays off of that, yeah.
Yeah, it's painful, but that's what they do. That's what they do best. That's what they do to you, and they always do it. Life of Pi, just one of the absolutely most cinematically beautiful films of all time. Yeah. And I forget the director, Ang Lee. He really tries to push the boundaries. Now, sometimes doesn't work at all. Like,
for better or worse.
Like, what was that? The
Gemini Man?
Gemini Man. Will Smith versus Will. A movie that should have basically been made. That film should have been made in 1997.
Yeah, I don't know why he accepted that. I mean, it is a 1997 movie. Bruckheimer produced it. Yeah.
That would have been good if it came out in 97 with Will Smith and then they just had him play himself, basically.
Yeah.
Without the CGI. I mean, that would have kind of worked, like in a face-off kind of way.
That movie could have worked in like 2002 or whatever after The Bourne had come out. Yeah, that movie would have absolutely worked. Yeah.
Does not work today, unfortunately. And the thing about what he was trying to do with that film is like do 3D 60 frames a second.
High frame
or
rate,
something
yeah.
like that. It doesn't work. Some things work, but that doesn't actually work for what makes film good. Because when you do that, it looks fake. It looks like you're there. It doesn't look like a film. And it makes the acting look worse, I think.
That's a whole different discussion. I'm on the side of I don't prefer the higher frame rate, but I like it and I wish more films would do it. I didn't like it when The Hobbit did it because that movie was a piece of shit.
That movie was a piece of shit, yeah.
And it doesn't work when because that is 100% an effects movie and it just ends up looking like a video game.
Yeah,
and
it looks bad.
I have played a lot of video games and like that didn't do it for me. You know, when I try to go to the theater, like it's one or the other. But I like the high frame rate experiments. I like Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk was a movie that Ang Lee did at high frame rate. I think that one worked. He does a lot of like cool slow motion shit. But interesting guy.
yeah, Life of Pi is, I mean, just some of the best cinematography of all time. For sure.
Superior to all of these movies that we just listed.
Yeah. And then, the last one for me would be Dunkirk. Again, it's a brilliant film, and I think it's really interesting what he tried to do with that film.
Why does he have to fuck with time?
It's just, that's his thing. I saw this was, I saw this on Letterboxd, and this was like the funniest shit ever. They did a review of Tenet. They said, Christopher Nolan is obsessed with time the way Tarantino is obsessed with feet. And I was like, okay. You got him.
100%.
You got him.
Nailed it. 100%.
You nailed it, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically it.
Yeah.
That's his thing. You know?
That's
but
funny.
we love his film. I like his films. I'm not going to really complain.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we've gotten to the final moment. So what's your number one?
Yeah, what could possibly culminate this list of, sweaty action dudes in like existential crisis movies? Well, last week or when we did 2019, I talked about the movie The Dirt. Jeff Tremaine's movie for Netflix about Motley Crue, and how unapologetically there's something to me about. So I work on two levels, right? I work on the extremely nihilistic, pessimistic, head trip kind of psycho movies, and then on the other end of that, I like excess. I like Expendables. I like my favorite movie of all time is Scarface. It is just fucking. If you didn't know any better, you would think that like cocaine is like blowing out of the fans of your DVD player, right? Like I like movies that give you that feel. So for me, number one for the decade, for the experience I had, and for the shit that it did was The Wolf of Wall Street. That's my number one movie of the decade.
The Wolf of Wall Street.
The Wolf of Wall Street is it. I like it more. I put it there because I had to pick, like, again, like for a lot of these, like for Django, I was just like, well, what Tarantino movie do I pick? Or like, what Ridley Scott movie do I pick? For this, it was kind of not a contest for me. Even though Irishman was my favorite movie of last year, Irishman is going for a different feel, is going for a different mood. And it definitely, and you could say this is a negative, but it has old man energy to it. I don't know what it is, but Irishman has, I mean, on purpose probably, but it has like old man energy. Like it feels like a movie made by old guys for old guys almost. Wolf of Wall Street has youth and excitement and cocaine and a lot of cocaine
and lewds
and it's like if Oliver Stone were to come back and do another Wall Street movie almost. Like it's really exciting again.
Well, he did do that, but this would be a good version of that movie.
Fuck, you're right. But I mean like if the Oliver Stone of the 80s were to come back. All right, let me
was on coke and it was good.
Rephrase that exactly. So Martin Scorsese maybe on coke. I don't know. I can't think of another film. There isn't another film in his filmography that goes to the lengths that this movie goes, which is why I like it so much. There's movies that he has where like the fucks per minute are off the charts, but not as much as in this movie. There's movies that have nudity, not as much as this movie. There's movies that have drug use, not as much as this movie. This movie rolls it all, and what I love about it is that it's the buffet. It's 3 hours long. There's nothing cut. It just got to come out there. You got these like really interesting casting choices. You got Rob Reiner in there fucking cursing up a storm. It just feels like something that somebody of the caliber of Martin Scorsese has no business making at that time in his life. Like this feels like something like Because then after this, what did he do? He'd made Silence, right? Like an intensely personal film about faith and Catholicism. And then he made The Irishman, reflecting on his legacy. And then, but this movie is just kind of exists in a bubble, and it's like a bubble of heroin. And it's, I don't know. It's just,
it's so fun. It's so fun. It's so fun.
It has the
it's so funny too. It's hella funny.
Yeah, it has the trappings of a Scorsese movie, right? It's got the voiceovers. It's got the kind of Goodfellas Casino way of telling its story. You really love to hate these characters, or you just love to love these characters, or you're a piece of shit and you want to be these characters. Whatever. It works for everybody. This movie is responsible for introducing the world to Margot Robbie, which I think is a net positive. Jonah Hill is in this movie. Yeah, I love this movie. I just love this movie. And I think just to kind of wrap it all up, what I love about it is that, again, it just feels good to have like a 70-year-old Martin Scorsese come out and just give it the energy and the life, because you see him in interviews and you see him behind the scenes, and he's excited and he's always like manic and he's always like, he loves making films. And it feels like this is the movie where whatever he was holding on to, for like 30, 40 years, whatever he like felt like wasn't appropriate to put in whatever movie he was making, he put in this movie. he put the Quaaludes in this, and he put everything in this, and it's directed so well. There's like a late in the movie, there's a scene where like they're on a ship and there's like a hurricane or some shit happening, and like they're like, I love you, man, and we're gonna die. Like, it's so manic. And I think it's amazing that somebody of the caliber of Scorsese was able to pull this off that late into his career. And Leonardo DiCaprio signed off. He just said, whatever you want to do, I'll do it. And he was also fighting to get this movie made. And so I'm just glad it exists, man. I love movies about excess. I love that kind of genre, and so this did it for me. Number one.
It's brilliant. It is a wild movie, and it's a fun ride. And
yeah, I mean, you could say that about a lot of movies. Like, you could say that about The Dirt, but like what separates Wolf of Wall Street is that because it has a maestro at the helm, whatever character stuff, is in there and is good. Like all the stuff with him and his wife, the drama of him losing his kids, stuff like that. All of that stuff is in there too. But like, it's all like, when you have brain fog and like you're trying to like write a report or something, but like you have brain fog and you just like can't quite get through it. The brain fog of this movie is like cocaine. You know? It's really cool the way it's done.
Yeah, and again, it's so funny. Like, it's really hilarious. Yeah. Like some of the stuff. Just thinking of like that scene when he takes the Quaaludes, then he goes to take a phone call, and then they hit him, and he's like, "What?" Yeah. It's like, "Wait, what did you say?" Like, and then they hit him,
and I mean, and it's heartbreaking too. Like, because later he drives his Lamborghini or whatever, and he crashes, and like just crawling away from that wreck, just on Quaaludes, and it's like, it's funny, but like, what a wreck of a man!
I know.
What a disaster!
What a mess!
What a disaster of a human being. It's sad. Yeah.
He's a total mess. Mess.
Yeah.
But it's a brilliant film.
Yeah. So what's your number one?
Okay, so my number one, the only way that I could describe this film, and I think this is the best way to describe it, it is the dramatic equivalent of Avatar. This film, yeah.
Okay. So the special effects, so it's like I was talking about, the special effects is really all about us.
So my number one is Boyhood, from Richard Linklater.
Oh, cool, dude. Thank you for liking Boyhood. Yeah. So many people talk shit about Boyhood. Let's talk about Boyhood.
Dude, this film is insane.
I know. I love
this film is insane. He shot one person, like the whole cast, over the course of 12 years. Yeah. And we see a person go from like, I don't know, what is he, like 8 or something until he's like 20?
Yeah.
That's crazy that he pulled that off in a movie. Like, I saw something Ethan Hawke was talking about, like, he's a part of this film. He's like, I didn't think it was ever going to actually work. I didn't think it was ever going to happen.
Yeah.
Like 3 years in, he was like, I don't think it's going to happen. Because like, you can't sign a contract to be in a movie for over 10 years. That's illegal. It's literally illegal. So he had to just, on faith, just try this thing and see if it would work. It's just an experiment.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so brilliant because it's like, how can you really do a coming of age film? A lot of the time you create a moment. You try to create this moment where characters sort of change when they're young, and that's supposed to represent the changes that really happen over time. He's able to actually create that time where you see a person change physically, emotionally.
Yeah.
And then you have those moments where at every step, because it's a culmination. Change is a culmination of things. You know, and in this character, we see like his parents get divorced and his mom marries this asshole guy. Then they have to leave, and then this, and then that, and then his dad, and blah, blah, blah. You know, and then in the end, you see it all culminate together where he's in college and he has a girlfriend, and it's like, wow, I've just experienced a person's life. Yeah. And that's just unbelievable that he was able to pull that off in this film.
It's unbelievable to me. Sometimes we talk to, or maybe we will talk about more in the future, but like sometimes we talk about the logistics of these things and how they get made. And I think that's part of the criticism I think that this movie got. And I never agreed with it, but it's like, it's a gimmick and it's nothing but a gimmick, right? I've heard this. It's just like, oh, it's a gimmick. He made a movie across, 10, 11 years, whatever. That's the sum of its parts. And it's actually a good, like there was a plan all along, and it comes through. And that's even more impressive that he was able to hook Patricia Arquette and Ethan Hawke will do whatever the fuck.
Yeah, he'll do whatever.
But like he was able to hook some of these like big names, and I think she won an Oscar for this, did she not?
Oh, I'm not sure.
But anyways, like he was able to get these people to do it. There's a couple of things about this movie that don't work for me, but like in the grand scheme of things, like what a cool thing to do. Yeah. Like you said, it's a coming of age movie. How do you do coming of age? You literally have all of your people come of age and go through because every single one of these people had stuff going on in their personal lives, and they're able to bring something new to to bring life experiences to every new scene. There's no movie that can do that. There's no movie on earth that can do that.
Yeah. I mean, again, Ethan Hawke got divorced from
Uma Thurman,
Uma Thurman, and he gets divorced in the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
All of it feels kind of real. It's almost.
It's like it's got some. There's some like Moonlight moments in this where you're just like when he goes like when he's in his like weird like prepubescent years when he's like hanging out with the high schoolers like and they're all like getting high or whatever. They're talking about girls and sex, and it's just like like this is awkward. Like I remember this, but like. This is really
awkward,
really
but
weird.
It's real. Like that.
It's real.
That's actually how people have that moment in their lives.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. I probably had that moment. I can remember that moment.
Same. Yeah.
And if someone had a camera on that, they would feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to see that shit again.
I mean, that's when the internet was a thing in like 2000. 2001. Like it was the fucking Wild West, man.
Yeah.
That's and there are people, again, it's this universal experience. Now today it's like social media or something else, but there's always some kind of thing where people have to change because they're shown some new thing or they have some new experience or they meet different people or they have a falling out with their parents. And this film encapsulates all those different moments. There was a lot, like for me, honestly, like there was so many things like where I could really connect with the main character. Like he goes through a Dragon Ball Z phase.
Yeah.
I love that. Then there's like, he goes to, they show him like getting one of the new Harry Potter books, like all that stuff. Like for me, there was a point where I could connect with the character.
It's funny that you mentioned, there's this, if like this could have been done, there was like a paradigm shift with the whole phones and the social media and stuff. Like this movie is pre that, and we are pre that. And so maybe because when he decided to start shooting this, like the lead actor is, I think, maybe a little younger than me, but like he's more or less our age. So he's part of that generation that grew up with the Harry Potters and the this and that. And certainly I did. And it was fun to kind of, no, not fun, not always fun, like we just talked about, but like you can put yourself in that shoes. And maybe for a lot of people it didn't connect because everybody has a different childhood. But like, I don't know, it sounds like we connected to it.
Yeah, for sure. For me, there was a lot of things. It was like almost 1-to-1. I mean, not the divorce stuff, but that just felt dramatic.
Yeah.
But like, when he was like into Dragon Ball Z and he's going out to this and like getting older and like, I forget what the whole, like the first dating stuff was like, but it all just like kind of worked, and like the ending, I don't know. The ending is really, I think, kind of powerful and encapsulates the whole thematic piece of the film. In the end, when you see him and he's like kind of out and he's become an adult.
Yeah.
And it's just like when you think about also just like all the changes you've seen happen to this, it's not even just the character, it's the person. the human being that you saw at the beginning of this film, who's like this cute little kid, and then he becomes basically a man.
Yeah. He's like he has a different air about him. And that's because he's just a different, like, he's not acting.
He's a different person.
He's just a different person. Yeah.
And that's something, I'm maybe there's a film that's tried to do that or has succeeded in doing it, but I feel like this is the film that does it the best of showing through film and through sort of the veneer of cinema the change that happens to a human being over time.
Yeah.
And I think it's brilliant.
What an interesting thing! Like going through all of our lists, like we've hit many different types of films, and it's awesome and it's refreshing, I guess, just doing this list to remember that like films and cinema can work on all of these different, like they can just do these different things, and they don't all have to be, they don't all have to be what Fast Five, like they can all do different things, and it's really cool.
Yeah, for sure. That's another one, I mean, could anyone else have really pulled it off than Richard Linklater? I don't know.
Right. Well, because again, the logistics always creep back into my brain for this one. It's just like
the logistics are a nightmare.
How do you do this?
Nightmare. It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Oh my, because one little thing goes off, and maybe if you're good enough at being able, so you need the main lead to always be there.
Yeah.
If you lose him, you're fuoked. Yeah. But if something else goes wrong, you could maybe kind of mom deserted us. She moved away.
Yeah.
but dad divorced us, and so whatever.
Yeah, but then what if the actor who played dad comes in and says you can't use any of that footage? Then what do you do? And then you go to court over this movie. Like it's such a balancing
act. It's tangled for another 5 years.
Yeah. And then your lead grows up and you're fucked. There's a lot of stuff that had to go right for this movie to come out.
And he's trying to do another one similar to this, but like a 20-year arc.
I heard about that. Yeah, that's. I mean, hey, if anyone could do it, he's got the experience. But like Jesus.
I wonder what year we're in. Maybe we're like year 3 or 4 for him at this point. I don't know. But it's this film, it's so great. I mean, I also love the Before trilogy.
Yes,
and this almost feels like the Before trilogy in one film.
Yeah,
if you see like that whole arc.
In
one film, like it's brilliant.
Because those are all made like a decade apart or whatever, right?
I believe so. They're all done in decade.
So. Yeah.
It's like 95, 2005, 2015. Yeah. It's amazing. Stuff. It's amazing what he's able to do. And again, those are like he's just friends with Julie Delpy and Ethan Hawke. They just make a film every decade, and
I believe the story was for the first or second one. They're just like they were at con or whatever, and they're like, "Hey, you got 3 days. We'll just make a movie." Like, I would love to do that. Yeah, and because they were like improvising it, like writing it, like Ethan Hawke was writing it with them as they went along. Like really cool.
Yeah, great stuff. I love this film, and just like seeing the whole thing come together, seeing Boyhood come together. It's incredible to me. It's like there's nothing else I've ever seen like it in film. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. I think people don't give that movie enough credit because it's not. I don't hear it brought up as much as other movies when it comes to, because the lists of the decade have come out already. People have already talked about this, and I haven't heard too much about Boyhood. I heard a lot about some of the other movies, but I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, it's my number one for me. So cool. All right, we did it. We got through our decade list.
Did we?
Yeah, pretty epic. Well, wait until in the future we'll have to do our top 100.
Sure, I could do that. Yeah, just axe them as they go.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Oh man. Well, this has been fun. I really like this. I thought it was. What's good is like I feel like we agree on a lot of films, but we always have things that are generally pretty different. So we cover a lot of ground.
True. Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah, you can always count on me to pick the manic depressive stuff. That's for sure.
And the action stuff where you get that feeling.
I'm telling you, it is an untapped well that is my like action knowledge of those films, those eras, those producers, all those things. Yeah. Big fan. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks for listening to us talk about films for 3 hours nearly.
Yeah, I mean, shit. Yeah, if you had nothing better to do, then more power to you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well,